Welcome to the WTF Forum. The hosts do not give financial, legal, medical, or any kind of advice. Opinions are their own. This broadcast contains foul language and dangerous ideas. If you need a trigger warning, you are in the wrong place. Now enjoy the show.
Dear partners and friends of
What the fuck?
Forum, a very cordial welcome.
The WTF Forum is a decentralized broadcast network with no governing body of any kind, and is produced and distributed by a loosely affiliated, ever-growing network of rogue, independent content creators. This forum does not, will not, and shall not have any one location, feed, platform, or channel, but shall be shared and multiplied as nature dictates. If any listener of the following proceedings finds themselves offended, they will be asked kindly to go fuck themselves. All right, what the fuck's up, everybody? How we doing? This is Mike the Polymath coming at you from the Easy Peasy Workshop, and we're going to have another good forum here. So far, we've got a small group, but as it tends to be, we may have more come along the way. So for now, I will pass it over to Stella Q. What's happening, Stella?
That wasn't me, by the way.
Yeah, we got a dog. We got a dog in the house.
Yeah. What's happening? Life. It's a lovely morning. We're 11 a.m. in your future. Everything is good. My pet lizard is running around and everything's fine. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, we got a video of you feeding your pet lizard, so we're one step closer to knowing what you look like, although your face was still hidden. So that was fun.
By design, my friend.
Yeah, I figured.
Yes, and I have some more footage because I visited again yesterday, and we got even closer, and I was actually stroking it with like a leaf, and I was very much enjoying it.
So this is a wild lizard that you are befriending, yeah?
It has befriended me.
Oh, awesome.
Eastern water dragon.
Too cool.
I'm training a dragon. Hey, Ashley.
You should write a how-to book.
Yes, you should.
Yeah. Great idea.
How to train your dragon at the Worm Cafe.
Yeah, that's right. All welcome.
So what's up with you, Ashley? How you doing?
Oh, hi. I'm okay. Yes, I look like the mad scientist here today. That's fine. I'm recovering from having the crud. So Stella does know all about it because I was definitely feeling it on our Not Your Mama's News this past week. It got really bad after that, but I'm here. My energy is not quite returned to full form, but hey, we're gonna do the damn thing. You know what I mean?
Warrior.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
Well, it's okay. If you don't have the energy, maybe I can bring it. I'll do my best. This is something that we all figured we should have covered on the last episode because it's pretty well said. This is a comedian. His name is Ryan Long, and he does a good job of kind of summarizing the predicament that many normies find themselves in as far as who to support, right? Should I let this play and we'll take it from there?
I love this guy.
Yeah, he's funny. All right, here we go.
Is now I still haven't weighed in on Israel-Palestine. I honestly don't know who to post. Usually it's easy. BLM, bang. Ukraine, bang. COVID, bang. Hey, did you do your Israel-Palestine post yet? I've never missed a stand. So who'd you go with? I look at my phone, I see a lot of Republicans supporting Israel. So I go, maybe stay away from that. Then I see a lot of the people we've been calling Nazis supporting Palestine. But then get this, the people that we've been calling them Nazis with are happy Israel's getting attacked. Riddle me that. But there really is no easy answer here. That's literally what I was saying, man. Because normally it's pretty easy.
I don't know what the answer is.
I just want to post one of the flags and sort of be done with it. I'm getting yelled at if I post Palestine. I'm getting yelled at if I post Israel. Obviously, I was at the front lines of getting mad at Kanye West when he was doing the anti-Semitism stuff. Everyone was thanking me for standing up for the Jewish community. So naturally, I'm seeing this happen. I go, okay, we're back with the Jews again. I see Kylie Jenner post for Israel. I think, okay, the word's in. Then boom, she's getting killed on every angle. So it's not Israel. So I started doing a bit more research. I'm seeing queers for Palestine. And generally, you want to be on the side of the queers. If you look at the things, you're not going to get in trouble if you go with what the queers are saying. Then Mia Khalifa, who we obviously support, is posting with the queers. And she's getting fired from her job. The whole reason I'm posting this is to get in better standing with my job. And by the way, I started to see that your silence is noted post popping up. So we're running out of fucking time here. If you had to pick,
I would stay out of it like I told you.
Feels like we like decolonizing. What is decolonizing? Is that just like killing the people? I know to you, it might be like, oh, who cares what he thinks? A buddy of mine booked a Geico commercial from his Ukraine TikTok. So it happened.
What is decolonizing? Is that like just killing everybody? I mean,
I think it's intermingling everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny. Like I said, I think he does a decent job summarizing the predicament that many young Americans in particular find themselves in, because I think if you're an older American, you have already made your mind up as far as Israel goes, but a lot of young folks are like, oh, well, I see people that, I want to agree with backing both sides. So what the fuck do? I don't know what to do. Somebody tell me what to do,
Yeah. Yeah. What should I think now?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I have to admit, I have felt that way to an extent. Not necessarily, like, I feel like I have tried to have a level take on what is happening and try to look at the actual history, try to look at the facts and the context of the situation and like the emotional reactions that people are having, and not really have that, and like begging them, please understand war propaganda, atrocity propaganda, please don't lose your critical thinking here. But I will say that it has been quite a trip to see, hey Fido, to see people on the left seem to be supporting something that's common sense for once. And then all the people that I thought on the right, who I thought were awake of the PSYOP, of the propaganda, all that stuff. And they've been completely like, their MK Ultra programming has been completely triggered, and they've lost their minds. And they're just like back to the same old neocon warmongering conservatives. It's a weird place to be,
Yeah, sometimes what we would refer to as reactions, I'm sure they probably refer to them as fallout. It's like they're just watching the fallout from this particular PSYOP.
It's not dead babies; it's collateral damage. It's just about words. But yeah, let's welcome Fido to the room. How you doing, Fido?
Hey everybody.
Hello.
I'm glad to catch y'all this week. The last couple of weeks have been kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they've been really crazy, and I hadn't got anything done, but I've been crazy busy. So I actually managed to snag some time to jump on here with you guys. So what are we talking about?
Well, we just hopped kind of back into the Israel-Palestine thing, but as I was saying to Stella and Ashley before we went live, I don't want to focus on the minutia. I want to take it to 30,000 feet. What I kind of think we're going to talk about is the idea of ethnocentrism as a whole, where despite everything else, the number one thing that matters is your identity group, your tribe, if you will, right? I see this pattern kind of recurring, and I think we're going to kind of pursue it. But we, before we get into the serious stuff, I thought we would just admire the finest set of balls that I've seen in quite some time. And they happen to appear on the chin of our president. So hang on here a second. There we go. Check this out. The audio is horrible, but I'm going to play it anyhow, just so we can observe the raw footage of where all these chin ball memes are coming from. All right.
virtually every mass shooting, every circumstance where a large number of people have been victimized and lost, I've spoken with them. I learned a long time ago, which you've all learned in your life. When someone's going through something that is beyond their comprehension, they've ever thought they'd have to go through. If they see someone who they think understands that maybe been through something, not the same, but similar, it gives them some sense of hope.
Okay, I'm pausing. Like I said, the audio is horrible, but when I woke up and saw these memes about the chin balls, I was very confused. And then I watched this video and I'm like, yeah, they're real. They're real. Our president has a weird thing going on with his face where his chin appears to be sagging. Does anybody have any theories about what we're looking at here?
None that I would like to broadcast, but but I just feel like somebody just beforehand said, okay, Joe, be careful how you move your head because you haven't worn this mask in yet, all right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if it's not like hey, someone may think it sounds crazy for them to wear a mask, but I'm telling you, something weird is going on. If you just do the minimum amount of digging of like the Joe Biden clone meme or whatever, I mean, there's like 8 different looking creatures of this, first of all. But I would say that in a more normal explanation, I would say that looks like filler gone wrong, because when filler is injected into the face, if it's not done correctly and it's not like moved correctly and put into the correct place, then you can get pockets that look strange. But even on the worst plastic surgery stuff that I have seen, I don't know that I've ever seen it that bad.
His whole face looks stiff. I mean, it looks like the whole thing has either been injected or it's a mask. But I mean, it's sort of appropriate to have balls on his chin because he's a dickhead.
He is a huge dickhead.
He is a massive, massive dickhead.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, either this dude's just old and his face is sagging and the Botox has worn off, or this is not the guy.
That would not be from Botox.
No.
No.
Too
Now,
stiff,
what
I think.
it could be like filler getting dissolved or something, but it looks like filler gone wrong. But Botox is, when it wears off, it's quite gradual. So it wouldn't be like a sudden sagging like that. What you would see is on the if you're not watching, if you're only listening, Mike has 2 images of Biden up right now. One of them looks like a normally aged male. That's on my left. I don't know if it's on the viewer's left or whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so basically like Botox would be done between the brows and the forehead, right? So you just wouldn't see movement in those areas of the face, right? They would look smooth, but when he was making a normal facial expression like squinting or something like that, you would see them with Botox, you would not see that type of movement, but it would not necessarily indicate sagging. Like it can do that if somebody is doing like filler Botox constantly, but if it's just Botox, then it's just going to gradually wear off, and then you're going to start seeing the movement between the forehead and between the eyes there again. So what you see with chin balls is something totally different. It looks like filler to me. If we're not doing mask or clone thing, then it looks like filler gone wrong. Chin filler.
The thing is, his whole face, though, it looks really stiff, and his, top lip, which could have been just done. And I also think that, if he's being sculpted by probably the best surgeons or whatever, they would never let him go out looking like that. You know what I mean?
No.
Like they'd go, oh, hang on just a minute, Joe. We're just going to fix up the chin a little bit there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be done that suddenly either. The thing is with filler, to notice your full results normally is up to a 2-week time frame. And his face does look smooth. I mean, he doesn't even look like the same person. Even if somebody had a facelift, he looks totally different. He looks pale. His whole skin, his whole face looks just like you said, smooth.
It's like plastic, yeah, silicone or
Also,
something.
also,
His hair doesn't
also,
look real either.
hey, also, did you notice? Have you look at the picture again? Do you see the earlobes? The one on the right, the earlobes are attached. The one on the left, they're not.
Yeah, Stella has been talking about that a good amount, and that's true. And there, these like 8 different pictures of Joe Biden. There's all these issues with like the earlobe catch and all kinds of other weird things, and you feel like you're being messed with. You know,
very much so.
What the fuck is going on here?
2 other things too. One other thing is that he's got a very high neck, zipped up top on, you know, to cover the bottom. And the other thing is that the way he was turning his head, it was almost like he had a sore neck. And that's like, he just looks like he's carefully turning, like he's turning enough to make people go, oh, we'll see he's moving. So, but not enough to make it look fluid or natural. So it's like he's being very careful to not let the seams come out.
He's moving.
That video, I was just going to say, the video, he's literally like nervously covering his face as if he's aware that his features are fucked up. It's like there's like an he's self-aware about it. He's
self-consciousness of his movements. Yeah,
he's self-conscious about it. Yeah.
Yep, doing just enough to make it look like he's moving naturally, but he's not. You know what I mean?
It sounds like Fido's got a few thoughts. I just wanted to say, you know, what I found most interesting. I woke up to these memes. I've been kind of halfway unplugged. It's been a busy week, so I have not been on Twitter. But when I saw this stuff, my initial gut reaction was like, oh my God, like, I don't even fucking care. And then I was self-aware of that reaction where it's like, I'm somebody who pays attention, who already is suspicious about the image they're putting in front of us. And here's like some relatively concrete evidence that something is amiss. And I'm so desensitized to it already that I'm just like, fuck it. Like, who cares? You know? And that's kind of sad because it's like, guess what? Our fucking president's face is falling off. Can anybody give me a good answer here? I should care.
We can give you our best guess, and it's either going to be fall under the conspiracy theory category, or it's going to fall under the batshit crazy category. Either one of them is potentially possible, because I haven't seen any other explanation for why his face is looking the way it does, why it transforms the way that it does, because his isn't the only one that does it. But his is the most, by far, probably the most documented, I guess you could say, because he is the president. And people have been watching this for years. And it wasn't really until I think his second re-election, if that's what you want to call it, his selection, when he got reelected, that's when I think I really saw an uptick in a lot of the posts and commentary about how his face is different. So there's plenty of documentation out there if people are willing to look. But to me, the most telling is not just the way his face sits on his head anymore, it's his ears. Because those you cannot, those are different for everybody. Everybody's ears are different. Kind of like fingerprints. And for one person to have so many different ear types, something's going on. I can't explain it. I don't have any kind of proof, but there's something going on. At least to me.
I often make the joke, oh, which one have we got today? Is this long lobes or short lobes?
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's simplifying it for us, I think, Stella, because I wonder how, I don't know. I just feel like there's like at least 4 to 8 of these motherfuckers out there.
Well, he's an old man, and who knows if he's even still alive, the original one. There's probably a few of them that had to step in because it's like, ooh, we're stretching this out a bit, aren't we?
100%.
Well, I can show you several different pictures of me from different angles, and I look somewhat different, but but it's the same. You can tell it's the same person. Whereas with Joe Biden, I can show you 4 or 5 different pictures. It looks like a completely different person.
Yep. As someone who does or has done quite a lot of photography, portraiture with just the lighting itself can very much change how somebody looks. Just that. So
And
then
the camera angle.
Then you've got angles. Then you've got resolution as well. That can make a very big difference of the photo. You know, if it's a copy of something and it's degenerated a little bit, it can make someone look smoother and younger. But yeah, generally, you can kind of tell when there's just something wrong.
It's just not right.
Yeah. Something's just not right. You're muted, Mike.
I almost suspect that the propagandists are getting lazy, right? Partly because of my own response of like, oh, who even fucking cares? Like, I already know he's full of shit. But like, it's sort of this thing where if you fuck with people long enough and you don't get much backlash, you're just gonna like get lazy about it, right? And I don't know how many Bidens there are. I don't care. But like, I will never be able to convince normies that there's more than one. No matter how hard I try or how much evidence I show, you know?
Right. Well, and then to your point about not caring or, whatever, sure. I think the apathy is part of it. Like we were talking about a little bit before the show, because I think that when you continuously are getting people used to living in a really weird time where nothing makes sense. And I think that's part of the psychological warfare against us. And even if we did get so-and-so to believe that there's a clone of Joe Biden, what difference does that actually even make? Whatever. Okay, fine. That's the least of my worries if you believe this. Catch up, sister or brother, because there's a lot more that you need to understand than there's 2 Bidens. That might be part of it, but it's a tiny little piece in a 10,000 piece puzzle.
Yeah, I think the propaganda overload and the reality distortion. I mean, that's just to screw with us, obviously, and to muddy the waters as well, because if there's enough of that nonsense around, we get those exact things like, I don't care, I'm not paying attention anymore, what have you. So that's part of where they're trying to steer us. But it also serves to make us look like complete idiots. So if they're sort of putting it out there and they're making it really obvious to people who are actually tuned in and watching, but yet many normies would still not see these obvious things. So it's sort of like, it's just, they won't even give you the time of day to sit down and look at the video of it, and so that you can say, see. A lot of them won't. I'm not saying all, but a couple of my friends, they won't even let me finish a sentence anymore, because it's like, that's just too confronting. Yeah, whatever it is, I don't know, I'm not even going to try to bloody, but yeah, I think part of that is to make us look like bloody idiots.
It's gaslighting in the next phase, right? We've shown you enough truth to get you on the hook. Now we're going to show you all the truth so that you sound, it's like, I remember one of my favorite shows is called Community. And there's an episode of Community where there's like a secret society and they have Hitler in the corner frying paninis with an American astronaut like chopping up, slicing the bread. And the whole point is like, we want you to sound crazy if you tell anybody what you've seen here tonight. Why do you think we have Hitler frying up paninis? Because we want it to be insane on its surface, right? So there's that. I've got this speech of Biden, and what I found most interesting was the last 5 minutes. Stella and Drew covered this on the propaganda report, and I was listening and kind of screaming to myself about oh, you guys didn't even hear it. There's a moment in here that I thought was particularly like a Freudian slip, the truth wanting to come out. Now I've got it kind of buried, so I'm going to play it for a few minutes. We might pause and talk, but the big punchline, when we get to it, we'll see if anybody notices. Here we go.
all forms of hate, whether against Muslim, Jews, or anyone. That's what great nations do. And we are a great nation. On Ukraine, I'm asking Congress to make sure we can continue to send Ukraine the weapons they need to defend themselves and their country without interruption, so Ukraine can stop Putin's brutality in Ukraine. They are succeeding. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he would take Kyiv and all of Ukraine in a matter of days. Well, over a year later, Putin has failed, and he continues to fail. Kyiv still stands because of the bravery of the Ukrainian people. Ukraine has regained more than 50% of the territory Russian troops once occupied, backed by U.S.-led coalition of more than 50 countries around the world, all doing its part to support Kyiv.
Okay, I'm pausing there real quick to point out that he mentions that there's a 50-country coalition led by the United States dedicated to protecting Kyiv. Kiev. I'm going to say Kiev because Kyiv is gay and fake.
Kiev is the
Good for
correct
you.
pronunciation. It's always been that way until
Yep.
just here recently. They've been trying to change it. I have no idea why, but it's like
Because
they're
it's
trying to
definitely-
screw with people.
because they're trying to gaslight us on everything.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it already, but I got into a bit of an argument at the pub with people telling me I shouldn't call it Turkey. It's pronounced Turkey. And I got
That's some bullshit.
I got into it with them because I go, hold up. I speak American English. I go, if I'm in Mexico, am I going to say United States of America or am I going to say Estados Unidos? Right? If I'm in America and I'm talking about Turkey, I'm going to say Turkey. If I'm in Turkey, maybe I will say Turkey. Right? If I'm trying to speak the language. But guess what? I don't use umlauts and accent marks.
Yeah, fuck umlauts.
Yeah. That's not in my language. And so you're forcing me to pronounce a word that in order to pronounce correctly, you must spell with an umlaut and an accent mark. I'm sorry, that is not in my vernacular. I was taught to say Russia and Ukraine and fucking, in fact, I was raised, it was the Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
as if it was a region and not a country, but that's neither here nor there. But you know, it's the capturing of the language to gaslight you because, oh, what you think you know, you don't know. You're crazy. It's not Turkey, it's Turkey.
I remember it was maybe last year or something when all this BS was going there. When right after we realized they were trying to change how you pronounce Kiev, we were watching an episode of oh shit, what's the name? That show with Richard Hammond and James May.
Top Gear.
Top Gear. Yes, I was going to say Grand Theft something, whatever. I was like, that's not it.
Well, there's
Top Gear.
there's also Grand Tour, but it's the same
Grand
show.
Tour. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, so
Grand
anyway,
Tour, yeah.
so we were watching an episode of Top Gear, and they were doing one of their little road trip things, and they went through Ukraine, and they actually drove past Chernobyl, and the entire time they kept saying, Kiev, Kiev this, Kiev that, Kiev this, Kiev that, and that episode was probably, I think, 10 years ago or so, and they were saying it then, and I was like, and I pointed it out to my husband, and I was like, see, they say it that, they say it the way we've always been saying it, and that the whole Kiev thing has been just a recent BS that they've been trying to push on us.
Well, I know when I go to the pub, I order a chicken Kiev.
Exactly, though.
I don't think I've ever had one of those.
Oh, they're pretty good. I do recommend them.
So they do talk about that recipe in Orange is the New Black, Fido, if you want that random tidbit. And I was going to make the joke when Fido was talking, America's Next Top Country, because that's how it's being played, right? America picks who's the good guys, and then, they swindle us and steal and, cause worldwide havoc.
Good call.
And the other thing is, when did Americans become so pretentious that they're that they're correcting you on your pronunciation of turkey.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what? Who the fuck cares? Okay, you say turkey, great, good for you. You want a medal?
Well, it was kind of funny because I got called out for like, it was almost overwhelming. You know, I got called out for saying turkey instead of turkey. And then immediately afterwards, there were basically two guys. They're both left leaning, but I get along with them. You know, these are guys I know from the bar. And one of them says, "Oh, don't say turkey, say turkey, whatever." And I'm like, fuck that. You know, I push back. So when I push back, they push back, right? This is how it goes. And the one guy was like, you know, he follows me on Instagram. And I had literally the day before made a point of using the word retard and making a point as to why I should be allowed to use the word retard, because if shit's retarded, I'm going to call it retarded. And so he brings that up. He's like, yeah, this is coming from the guy who thinks you should use the word retard. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'll say whatever the fuck I want. I'm sorry. Like, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And the one guy who was all bent out of shape about turkey, he goes, well, if you know something's wrong, why would you continue to say it? I'm like,
Wrong.
well,
Okay.
well, I guess, you know, we'll find out what's wrong and what isn't. I didn't really have much to say. I basically was at that point kind of like, all right, I'm done with this. Thank you. Check, please. I'm leaving. But, you know, people want to be right, and they love to point out when you're wrong, and they don't want to read between the lines of the point of what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
They want to just pick apart the words.
Mm-hmm.
And the other
They
thing
want to
that
argue. They want to argue over stuff that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was going to say, I think that it's actually more dangerous than that, though. And I'll tell you why. Because if you were a predator, a global predator elite, and you wanted to, and I'm not arguing over fascism or communism or whatever. This is totalitarianism. This is digital gulag. Okay. So call it whatever you want to call it. But if you were trying to implement that, and we know that they have learned from every failure or every success in every war, in every coup, in everything that they've done for the last 2,000 years on this earth, we know that they've been learning, right? So the point of that is that they want people to snitch on each other. Snitch culture matters in a totalitarian state. We saw that they tried to really get that going, and in some cases were highly successful during the scamdemic. So the problem that I really have with somebody saying it's turkey is the fact that these are the same motherfuckers that are going to be snitching on you. That, oh, you can't say the word retard. Why not? This is supposed to be a free country, okay? You may not like it, but that does not make the decision on whether or not I am allowed to say it. So that's the reason that I think it's dangerous, is because these are the same motherfuckers that are going to be snitching on you whenever shit hits the fan once again. They need snitch culture. They're desperate for snitch culture. And these are the kind of people that are sucking the dick of snitch culture.
Well, it's called self-policing in the Panopticon, when the prisoners are basically self-regulating and they know they're being watched. Well, and in Mike's friend's case, it's not that they know they're being watched, but they're falling right into that whole self-policing thing. Oh, well, we need to do right because some BS reason of honor and whatever. They don't even have a good reason for causing an argument amongst each other over the correct pronunciation of a country, which isn't even something worth arguing over. If we've all been taught that it's called turkey, it's always been that way, and now they want to make an argument out of it. For what purpose? And it's because they've fallen into that whole self-policing paradigm.
Yeah, and I would have been.
It's not going to stop there. It's only going to get worse.
Sorry, Fido.
It's okay.
I would have been asking that fella, when did you start saying turkey, mate? When did you start saying that? Like when did you first hear of that? That's what I would have said anyway.
Yeah,
But,
that was
they-
a
they-
great
say it that
question,
way.
Stella. That's a great question and a great, like, you're not even getting emotional. You're just like, all right, when did you do that?
Yeah.
Last
yeah.
time I heard you talking, you said fucking turkey.
It's the same thing as like most people would never have been able to point out where Ukraine was on a map before 2020, that or 2021, whenever that happened. But I mean, they big, big T, they TM got their way because there was yet another little form of division there. You were a little bit divided with your mates over something that really didn't matter that much. But good for you for standing up for it.
Well,
But,
I looked into it, and apparently the country itself put out like a press release saying
okay.
we want to
It's on
be
the news.
pronounced this way.
It's on the news,
So-
so this guy is obviously a mainstream news watcher. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I would guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
But I'm
Turkey
like-
also change their gender?
Yeah. Well,
And we have
I
to
mean,
respect that because their press release.
that's my point. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what some guy said in a press release. Like, what's the precedent here? Like, what are we subjecting ourselves to? What are we bowing down to? What? You can't speak your own language anymore. There can't be different pronunciations for the same concept. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, these are like the Karens. They're the bars. They're the bars of our cages. These people. It's like they have sort of set things off, and now it's like the people are just organizing it, bringing in our loss of freedom themselves in amongst each other. Because once they start dobbing on each other and doing all that sort of thing, it's just like Black Mirror, isn't it? Yet again.
It's that whole slippery slope of changing words and changing meanings and definitions of words. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit off topic, but it's kind of in the same vein. I just happened to come across an article where I think it was for some reason it was a New York Post article. I don't even know how it showed up, but it was talking about how the younger, the 30 somethings have been using a phrase out of pocket when saying that they're going to be out of the office or away from their desk or indisposed. Instead of just saying I'm going to be away from my desk, they're going to say I'm out of pocket. And they're like, well, that doesn't mean what they think it means. They think it means the younger than 30s think it means having a bad time, like on a mental health break or like a psychotic break or something. They've taken it to mean that, and it's like that's not what that means either.
No, it means you paid money out of your own
means
pocket.
you paid money out of your own pocket is what it means. I'm out of pocket. It's like I had to pay money out of my own pocket, not it wasn't on a tab, it wasn't on a credit card bill. And I'm like, all of y'all are using this wrong. And it goes back to the whole changing the meaning of phrases and slang and terminology that people use to communicate to muddy the waters. And I'm like, okay, so the younger generation wants the older generation to keep up with the changing slang and the common vernacular, which is okay, but they're taking the stuff that was already had use, that already had, instead of coming up with their own, they're just retooling, repurposing old phrases and words. And some of the words are brand spanking new, I've never heard of, but they're that one out of pocket, they've taken it and completely changed its meaning. I'm like, oh, well, if enough people agree on the meaning of a word, that's what it means. It's like, well, I guess that's how it works, but I mean, you can't sit there and expect everybody else to keep up with you if you're going to just constantly change the meaning of phrases. And it just goes back to that whole generational divide again.
Sure. And is it part of the psychological warfare as well? I mean, I think it's a pretty tried and true practice, right? Because we know newspeak is it's not new.
Right.
So I think that we know about newspeak because it is a tactic that does work in a totalitarian society.
It does.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I don't want to. It's kind of like what we're going to do here is we're going to pick apart the words of our president in this speech. And I'm kind of, it's like, I don't want people picking apart my words. So it's a little bit, right? Right.
No, you're not the president. You're not the president.
I'm not the president. I'm not the president. Amen. And also, I don't know. Yeah, I guess my point is I don't have a point. I'm sorry.
Well,
I
just
don't
gonna
honestly,
play-
personally, I don't mind if somebody picks apart my words because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes my meaning doesn't get across. So if
Yeah.
somebody takes my meaning a way that I didn't intend, I want to hear about it because I want to set the record straight.
Sure, that's a good point. And one thing that I would also say is that good for Mike, because Mike just doesn't fucking put up with people's nonsense. He just doesn't suffer fools. So if somebody comes at him with some nonsense, they're going to get pushback for it. Me, because I have a lot of baggage surrounding conflict resolution and management, I would just be like, we're done here. You know, I'm just not going to do it. And I don't think that's the best way. And I've seen many examples where Mike, of, you know, just in our conversations here, of saying like, no, so-and-so said this, and it doesn't really seem to matter where they are in your life, like family, friends, or whatever, you just are Mike, like you just are honest with them. I feel like Stella is a lot of that way too. And they're just going to call you on your BS. And I really admire that because I think it matters in this current time to have transparency. Now, I also think that Fido does that as well. I haven't heard as many anecdotal stories, but I do know that Fido is very much in that, you know, she wants people to at least have heard the facts. At least that's my understanding from our relationship so far. So I commend that because it's something that I don't necessarily go towards that because of my own personal hangups surrounding, you know, provisional self-esteem. If someone's mad at me, you know, but a lot of that is my own personal baggage, but it still affects me telling people like, are you serious right now? Like, you know, sometimes I just feel like I would feel better to get it off of my chest. And I think that you three do a really good job at that. So, bravo to you for not suffering fools.
Well, Ashley, I will say this: as far as learning how to deal with being called out on your bullshit, my husband and I utilize that tactic in our relationship, and we came to that agreement early on when we would have our arguments. We both agreed that if either of us did or said something that was bullshit, we would flat out just say, "Hey, man, that's bullshit." And we would talk about it. We would get angry about it at first, but then we get over it and then we talk about it. And it takes practice. And having someone who's willing to not let the bullshit in the relationship or in the friendship or in the encounter and be willing to work through it. And it does take both sides working at it. And so
Sure.
my husband will tell you that I don't put up with his bullshit anymore, and I call him out on it every chance I get.
Yeah.
And he does the same. He does the same for me. And so it's
Yeah.
hanging around people who call you on your bullshit is the best thing, is the best friends that you can have. I would just say that.
Sure. In that particular situation, that is in very good shape as far as me being able to express myself and ask questions, stuff like that. But that's a great point. It's more in the more ancillary people in my life, right? Like friends
Right.
and family that I struggle with and don't necessarily get into some sort of a calling them out for my fear of conflict with them. But I agree with you. It really does help you find who your people are, right? Because if there are people that are willing to have that honest dialect with you back and forth, then that's a winner chicken dinner.
Oh yeah, and one other thing on that part, as far as calling each other out, we don't do it to each other in public. We do it in private. We don't embarrass each other that way in public. So something that we did, we wait until we're somewhere where nobody else can hear us, and you know, because then we have it out, and then we can say whatever is on our minds, and usually quite a lot. So, but yeah, we don't seek to embarrass each other in public when it comes to calling each other out on bullshit. So that's another important caveat to remember. So, yeah, that's it.
I'd just like to say, well, thank you, Ashley, for saying that, because I do appreciate someone seeing that as a positive for a change.
Oh yeah, I'm proud of you, lady. I mean that. You know that.
Thank you. You've been a very good friend. And I'd just like to ask Mike, Me too. Um, do you get in trouble with that too? Calling it being like 2020 on, man. I just decided, and I've said it before, authenticity is the new currency for me. And I'm not going to put up with the small talk bullshit. I'm not going to put up with the having to sprinkle sugar on everything bullshit. And, trying to come back to be a little bit more tactful these days. But it's just like, it is a shock, especially to people who you've always been predictable to. And, I've been through many times in my life where I've been taken advantage of so many times because I wasn't like that and I didn't stand up for myself and I just went along with it, just took the orders or what have you. And it's like, that was something about 2020. It was just like, right, things are different now. Things have just radically changed. So I could just see authenticity and honesty is going to be absolutely mandatory, that word, but it is going to be essential for, facing what's to come, because there's time's running out. We don't have time for bullshit anymore. We need to get things done. We need to get ideas across, and we need to decide that if what we're trying to say is just rejected, we'll just don't throw your pearls to swine, basically. Move on. But yeah, I do appreciate that, and it's, as much as it does piss people off, some people have actually... I have seen it being challenged in people, like long term, of people who have sort of started being a little bit more authentic with themselves, and I'm talking about some people that might be around me and close to me or what have you. And it's subtle, but it's good. Yeah. So sorry if I've ever hurt anyone being honest, but I'm going to keep doing it.
It's kind of a tough thing, though. It's not like always easy, to be honest. And honestly, like at times I wished I had bit my tongue.
Yeah. Yep. Had many of them.
At times.
Yeah, I've wondered about that, Mike, because I feel like you've paid a personal price for it. And from what I have heard you talk about, a painful personal price. But it also matters to stand your ground, because if their opinion is that strong for them to tell you that you need to be that way, then it also should matter for you to be able to express your opinion back to them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really great point. And everybody's going to see things differently. We've got to respect our individuality, etc. So there's that. It's just finding that balance of when to sort of leave things alone, I suppose. But to be honest, I'd rather be... It's funny when people say to be honest, it means, oh yeah, I've been bullshitting to you all this time, except now I'm going to be honest. But like, to be really confronting, I would rather be alone than have a bunch of bullshitters around me, to be honest. Yeah. So to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I just lose my patience, which is not always a virtue, but like I lose my patience with the pleasantries at a certain point when something needs to be said that has gone unsaid. I tend to say it. I don't know. And it hurts at times to be that guy. Right? Which is why I'm like, man, I wish I had more patience.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
I can totally relate. Totally.
Yeah, and I think
Be careful
that
what
is,
you wish for.
Yeah.
True.
But I do think that that's, we all have things that we want to work on in our interpersonal skills, right? That we wish were better. And that doesn't mean we wish they're better now, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to get better, and we do have friends and we do have community that we can talk to about this stuff, and we can work on our patience. And something that I've learned about recently in autonomy is that a lot of times when people are being aggressive, it's based in their frustration. So whenever we lose patience, it's likely, because we're frustrated. So that means that we can start recognizing that pattern in ourselves and maybe step back and have a little time between our reaction and start working on how do we want to approach this situation. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to approach it at that time. It doesn't mean that how we've been doing things as ourselves is wrong, but it does mean that we can get better and we have opportunity for growth in going forward in how we deal with people.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's really, I think the difference you're talking about is approaching it in a mature sort of, in a way that you really do authentically want to work something out. as opposed to the emotional response and the, fight, flight sort of. I mean, God knows I'm definitely guilty of it myself, but ideally you don't bring the emotions into it as a reaction. You try to separate that, because that is how things can get worked out practically. But I just wanted to address what Phyto said before. Is so true. Careful what you wish for, because it's almost like be careful how you pray, because there's a difference between praying for, oh, please give me this, as opposed to thank you for this. So it's like believing you've already received it, and that makes a really big difference to can you give me this, Lord? Because and basically it's like, yeah, careful what you wish for, because it's like, you want patience? Okay, I'm going to send you this, and you're going to learn patience from it. So it's like you could be inviting in a whole bunch of it's going to happen anyway. You're going to have lessons, etc. But I don't know, the power of words. So
every time I've ever asked for the Lord to give me patience, He's given me something to be patient about. And
exactly,
it's been some quite difficult lessons. And so even when I'm trying to avoid an argument in people, and I'm trying to maybe, I think, okay, so they're pushing back because they don't understand what I'm saying. So let me rephrase it in a different way. And I ask that question, and they still push back. And then it just ends up devolving into like this argument over stuff that doesn't matter in semantics. And it's like, I'm not getting my point through, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this argument. We're not even, and it's not even supposed to be an argument. It was supposed to be a discussion, and I'm tired of it already. So I'm like, I'm done. Never mind. Just, you know what? It doesn't even matter.
That's the other art form too, is not only just sort of knowing how to work it out, but knowing when to walk away and knowing when to run.
Yeah. And I also wanted to just throw in another thing about this. So another thing that I think is something that I'm starting to try to keep in mind is my communication style, right? If I look at my communication, or if I look at truth, for example, as a product that I want to sell people, then that means that I don't mean sell them in a way that's going to benefit me. I mean, sell them in a way that's going to facilitate their awakening process, or facilitate some critical thinking, which I think is to the benefit of all of us. Then I want to start looking at my sales technique and what is most successful, right? You know, the old adage that you get more flies with honey. Okay. So that means that we have opportunity to work on our messaging, to approach it in a way that is more palatable to people. We have that chance. Now, of course, there's the question of, do I want to bother doing that? Hey, you might not, and that's fine. But if you have a desire to work on your messaging, then I think it can be done. So then we look at, and I'm not an expert on sales techniques, but like, what type of sales techniques may work in this situation? Would it be the question asking approach? Like something that we talked about in class today was okay, well, can you tell me about that? So us coming at it from a place of curiosity and then digging in with them, because most of the time they haven't dug very deep, right? So you can maybe get them to at least plant the seed of like, oh shit, I really can't defend my position here. Like, you may not even have to call them out, but they will realize that they can't actually defend their position. And maybe, just questioning the logic is another way. And us not getting emotional about it is helpful. But that's part of the trap, because the environment that we find ourselves in, it all is emotional. It's all reactionary. It's all, Ryan Long. Well, what side am I supposed to be on? So it's a really complicated landscape here that we're dealing with. So I think we definitely should cut ourselves a break in that regard, because listen, it ain't easy right now out there being a fucking truther.
Yep.
It ain't easy. It's a hostile environment.
And I'm going to tell you, trying to lead people to critical thinking is exhausting. And working with the job that I have, I'll get this call that a patient needs such and such. And I'm like, okay, well, did you, and I have like all these questions. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And half the time I just have to ask them a couple of questions. Oh, well, when you called the pharmacy, what did they say about blah blah blah? Like, oh well, we haven't called the pharmacy. I was like, maybe start there first, and usually that solves it. But it's like every single time I'm having to ply these people with questions, having to lead them and coach them every single time they call me, because most of the time if someone calls me, it's not supposed to be an emergency, because my job is not emergency based. My job is it's routine, it's regular. So if you give me enough of a heads up about something, I can have it resolved and handled in a timely manner. But if you wait to the last minute, like a lot of them are prone to do, it becomes an emergency, but it's not my emergency. It's their emergency. And having to find the patients to deal with that it is exhausting. And it comes from me repeating myself over and over again. It's not that they didn't, well, I say that it's not they didn't know, because most of the time they don't know because nobody ever told them, but I've told them repeatedly. So it's just this round and round thing. And it's like, I'm tired of dealing with it. And I don't honestly know what else to tell these people.
Well,
I literally cannot do their job, and I'm being told that I have to do their job. And it's like, I can't do everybody's job. I physically cannot do everybody's job.
so,
I can't
and
do their thinking for them.
I think part of that, Fido, too, is being in a helping profession. So a lot of times people that are in a helping profession are going, they will go above and beyond until they literally can't do it anymore. So I think part of that is also us learning how much energy can you exert and still do an excellent job, not a perfect job. And how much, and I'm not saying that's an easy balance, especially in a helping profession, especially when it comes to Western medicine and all of that stuff in today's day and time. But I think that part of that will also bring in our boundary work of like, how much can you allow yourself to give, because it's draining you, right? I mean, and I don't mean specifically you, but you know what I mean? Like, how much can be taken out of the cup before we ain't got nothing left in the cup.
Yeah.
So I think that's also like a, what's the word? Like it's an issue that goes with it, but it's not exactly the same, but they affect our well-being. You know what I mean?
Like parallel sort of thing.
Yes. I knew you would have the words, lady.
Hey. Yeah. I think also, Phyto, I'm pretty sure you and I are very similar in the sense that we're probably very practical people. We're sort of the logical, practical ones, perhaps, which can be annoying to a lot of people. But they do look to people like that, or like us sometimes, for solutions, because we come up with them often of our own accord.
And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but
I didn't mean that to sound like that either. But
no, yeah, I know what you meant. But I pride myself on being able to solve problems. I'm a problem solver. So when somebody comes to me with a problem, I'm happy to solve the problem for them. But the problem is, I've already solved the problem, and nobody's following the instructions.
Yeah, I can.
I have solved. It's the problem that I've solved multiple times, and it's like nobody took notes. Nobody listened or heard anything that I said or did, and it's like it's the same problem over and over. And it's like they wonder why I lose my patience with them and get frustrated. It's like, because you're not listening. You're not listening to a word I say. Yeah. And it's like, I'm telling you, you'll just do it this way, and you tell all of your coworker friends, this is the way to do it. I promise you the problem will be resolved. But they don't ever tell their coworker friends. So it just perpetuates itself over and over and over.
Yeah. It's like, which part of that clear instruction did you not fucking understand?
I can't tell you how many walkthroughs I have done at work for different tasks. I have done walkthroughs on different kinds of visit notes. I've done walkthroughs on how to do different things in the system. And I basically have a handbook on how to do everything. And I've given out copies of these walkthroughs, and nobody reads them. Nobody looks at them. I've done all the work of solving the problem. I've done all the work of writing down the steps to prevent this problem from happening again, but nobody looks at it. Nobody takes the initiative. And it's no wonder that I'm getting burnt out in my job, because It's like I'm fighting. I'm shoveling the sidewalk while it's still snowing, and so it's it's. I find myself struggling to remove the emotion out of it because I did take the time to invest my own energy, my own time into solving the problem and writing down the solutions, in an easy to read format that everybody can understand. And nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. It's like, that was my time, you motherfucker. Listen.
Yeah. Nobody paid me to do this. I just did it because it was a common problem. And you guys don't want to solve any problems. Y'all just want to keep rehashing the same thing over and over. So I'm like, I'm done. It's whatever.
Well, I think we just have to be stewards of those who can't, I suppose. That's probably the best way to look at it. Sort of see it as a purpose rather than a hindrance. Although, I mean, that's easy to say, harder to do. I know.
I just figured it out. What I need to do is do an infographic. And every time somebody asks me a question that's already been asked, just send them that as a response.
Just carry a little
Read
blind
this.
around with you.
Just read this. Come back when you've done all those steps.
Hilarious.
Well, I guess I'll say, when it comes to the truth, you can't shove it down anybody's throat, right? You can put it out there and let them come to it. You know, honey, not what, vinegar? Is that what it is?
Is the truth vinegar? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I guess it can, depending on the situation, it can be a little bit bitter.
You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But that, it's not always feasible when you're talking about shit that gets you fucking pissed off to be all sweet about it. No, I try to be just like, I try to live by what I say and say what I live by. So anywho,
Mean what you say and say what you mean.
Yeah. So that's why I get real weird when I hear little slip ups by Joe Biden. Like I said, there's kind of a punchline in this clip, and I wonder if you'll catch it. I'm only teasing when I say the propaganda report. You and Stella, you and
Brad.
I'm sorry, Brad. Yeah, I was sitting there waiting for you to catch it, and you didn't. But I think you'll hear it this time. So
okay. Well, like I said to you, he's which sort of started the conversation. I just tune out to the man now. It's just blah 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 blah. So I wasn't even really listening.
Well, and that's part of the game. I
know. I fell for it.
Yeah.
Temporarily
it's like
tuned
it's
out.
really hard. You really have to.
He does it every time.
You got to focus on this fucker.
You
All
do.
Right. Here we go.
What would happen if we walked away? We are the essential nation. Meanwhile, Putin has turned to Iran and North Korea to buy attack drones and ammunition to terrorize Ukrainian cities and people. From the outset, I've said, I will not send American troops to fight in Ukraine. All Ukraine is asking for is help for the weapons, munitions, the capacity, the capability to push invading Russian forces off their land, and the air defense system to shoot down Russian missiles before they destroy Ukrainian cities. Let me be clear about something. We send Ukrainian equipment sitting in our stockpiles. And when we use the money allocated by Congress, we use it to replenish our own stores, our own stockpiles with new equipment. Equipment that defends America and is made in America. Patriot missiles for air defense batteries, made in Arizona. Artillery shells manufactured in 12 states across the country, in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, and so much more.
Did you catch it?
Was it the thing that they're offloading their old crap so they can build new stuff? Is that sort of it or not?
Partly.
Okay.
He has a bit of a Freudian slip.
What would happen if we walked away? We are the essential nation. Meanwhile, Putin has turned to Iran and North Korea to buy attack drones and ammunition to terrorize Ukrainian cities and people. From the outset, I've said, I will not send American troops to fight in Ukraine. All Ukraine is asking for is help for the weapons, munitions, the capacity, the capability to push invading Russian forces off their land, and the air defense system to shoot down Russian missiles before they destroy Ukrainian cities. Let me be clear about something. We send Ukrainian equipment sitting in our stockpiles. And when we use the money allocated by Congress, we use it to replenish our own stores, our own stockpiles with new equipment. Equipment that defends America and is made in America.
Okay, I got it.
Ukrainian equipment.
The equipment that defends America.
One more time.
Clear about something. We send Ukrainian equipment sitting in our stockpiles. And when we use the money allocated by Congress, we use it to replenish our own stores, our own stockpiles with new equipment. Equipment that defends America.
Equipment that
defeats America.
That defends America.
Well, and I also caught that he called it Ukrainian equipment.
I think he meant to say we send
Yeah.
Ukrainians equipment.
Yeah.
Like we're sending it to them, not that it belongs to them.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying, though. Freudian slip. Yeah.
Well, and he's confirming, we're just freshening up our own supplies. We're getting rid of the old, out with the old, in with the new.
The new, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for our economy. We're gonna buy so many bombs and bullets because we've depleted our supplies. I mean, it's
recycling.
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's
man.
recycling.
It's all green.
And it's insane. It's
Green
insane.
wall.
But he literally says it out loud. That one more time.
Ukraine. All Ukraine is asking for is help for the weapons, munitions, the capacity, the capability to push invading Russian forces off their land, and the air defense system to shoot down Russian missiles before they destroy Ukrainian cities. Let me be clear about something.
Okay, I just want to say, whenever he says let me be clear about something, he's got all these little things. He says this a lot. Let me be clear about something. And then he'll say like, and in closing, and he has these little fillers, and I'm pretty sure it's just his brain has been programmed with these paragraphs, and it's like, okay, this is paragraph 3, this is paragraph 4, execute program. He's so robotic, but he stumbles. You can tell he doesn't even really give a fuck or know what he's even saying. He's reading the prompter, and he's not doing it very well.
He's got chin balls here too.
He's got the chin balls. Yeah.
We send Ukrainian equipment sitting in our stockpiles. And when we use the money allocated by Congress, we use it to replenish our own stores, our own stockpiles with new equipment. Equipment that defends America and is made in America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the weird thing is nobody ever says that that's what that money, the Ukraine aid is doing. That's the first time that I've ever actually heard anybody say what the money was going to specifically, because anytime you hear them talk about it on the news, they're saying, oh, we're sending money to Ukraine. We're sending this to Ukraine. And they didn't say anything about what he just mentioned. They didn't say anything about us replenishing our own stockpiles.
Mm-hmm.
That the equipment and the munitions that we're sending over there is stuff out of our own stores, and it's not stuff that they're ordering from the manufacturers to send over there. It's stuff that we already have, and that's the first time it's ever been mentioned that I remember. I don't think anybody's ever said that before.
Yeah, you sort of tend to, without really being stated, you tend to think, oh, okay. I mean, like for normies, they tend to think it's probably going towards hospitals or rebuilding structure for the civilians, or getting people out of there with bus, whatever it may be. A lot of people would think, well, it's going towards something good, but I mean, yeah, he has just outrightly stated that basically they're getting rid of their old stuff. Which will probably move on somewhere else. Maybe Iran.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen Hamas with like American M4s and other equipment. So yeah, somehow we always seem to fund both sides.
Yep. There's a meme out there of somebody being asked by a goose, where did they get the M4s? And the person is taking off, and the goose is like, where did they get the fucking M4s from?
Yeah.
Because we know that they left stuff over there. We know how what a debacle exiting Afghanistan was, and that was all part of all of this stuff. It was all another brick in the road. So here we are.
Well, okay, so I told y'all before we started, like, to me, what I keep coming back to is ethnocentrism, where it's like Israeli, Pakistani, fucking Indian, Pakistani, fucking I could, in America we have this like fomenting black white, right? That's what they want us to think. And I just think it's what the PSYOP boils down to. Hey, how can we tell you that you're different, even though we're all just the same? Y'all catch my drift?
Yeah, and I think that there is, in America, I would say that prior to the introduction of BLM into the ether, that things were probably better in that regard. So I definitely feel like the stoking of racial tension is intentional. I mean, I don't think anyone here would question that, but I think that we have many examples of people being able to integrate together into a country. It's not until not every time, but like in the United States, people seem mostly okay with like, Jewish, Irish, Italian, like German, black, white. Like it got to the place where it was like, okay, we're Americans. We've been told it's a melting pot and we're okay with that. It wasn't really until that narrative of you're being oppressed based on your race and the ramping up of the victimhood mentality that things are really they're really festering, it seems like to me. And I definitely think that there's a lot happening in smaller side issues as well. Like a lot of the examples that you see online of smash and grabs are usually, it's like a lot of Black people that are doing it. Now, is that the case all over the whole country? Is that the only people that are doing it? Maybe, I don't know, but that's all you're being shown for sure. Whenever there's a lot of videos that get shown in the algorithm of like a group of Black people just attacking one white person. And I think that things like that I do think it is happening, but I think that all of this is getting stoked intentionally. Like if it wasn't, then why would the algorithm be showing it to you? Because these people know, the cultural and social engineers know what they're doing. And I also would like to say that it's not that I don't think that there are cultural issues and oppression happening. But what I think is that it's more about war being declared on poor people. And they started, I do think that maybe they started in the Black community, because we do know that the CIA helped introduce crack into the Black community. And we also know that the Black community was very affected from the get-go by social welfare programs. And we do know that Black people are more disproportionately represented in the prison industrial complex. Now, so I'm not saying that there aren't issues. I don't know the root cause of all of these issues or anything like that, but I think that it's really more about poor people being targeted, and they're like working their way up, because at this point, if someone's trying to tell like, well, my community was disrupted by drugs, what community isn't being disrupted by drugs right now? Do you see the people that are having fentanyl overdoses constantly. Who got hooked on opioids? It was white people. Who got hooked on meth? It was white people. So these communities are being targeted. So you're not just a victim because you are ABC, XYZ, but people don't really have that ability to step back from that. We're just too worried about being a victim, and that's constantly being stoked.
Well,
Ashley.
and also they want to, they not only did the CIA plant all these drugs and everything in the Black communities, but there's also the propaganda machine against people who use drugs in general. They're always made out to be the bad guy. Well, these damn drug dealers and these drug users. It's like those people are victims. They've been preyed upon. They have been taken advantage of, and now they're addicted to these drugs that they may never be able to shake for the rest of their life. And those people are not the enemy. The enemy is the people who got them hooked on those drugs to begin with. And until people start changing their perception about who the real enemy is, this country is never going to move. No, we're not going to move forward. We're not going to get better. Nothing's going to get better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. It is all social engineering. You only have to look back at, the Black movement. I often wonder, was it a case of the integration went sort of in all countries just by human nature itself? Did integration go a little bit better than they wanted it to, so they've got to sort of fan the flames? Or was it a matter of moving the pieces into place over a long period of time to the point where sort of like a non-failure point of then pulling some sort of trigger about, social upheaval, etc., maybe Black Lives Matter, what have you, so that they knew that it was just en masse and then like ramping it all up. It's sort of chicken or egg type thing. But as we know, propaganda is also, it's always aimed at the heart. It's always aimed to keep us in that emotional response realm. We're very, very rarely ever allowed to relax, are we? Because there's always something, especially now. There's a war over here, there's a meteor over there, there's fucking something else. So it's sort of like when in the Black movement, a lot of they had to stir the racial tension because it just didn't really seem to be there naturally. And it's the same as the women's movement in Australia. I can relate to particularly. Around the 60s, 70s, there was Germaine Greer. She was a very famous feminist who was no doubt probably a socially engineered, created character. But I remember going into her a little bit and looking into, just what she was about and the social climate at the time, and seeing quite a few interviews of women just on the street, just being stopped on the street and asked her, what do you think of all this feminism? And none of them were unhappy to start with. They were told. They were told that they were unhappy. They were told they should feel more independent. They were told, the pill came along. They were allowed to be a little bit more, run around and have their own life and be less under the thumb. And, most of them were fairly content until they were told that's what they were, under the thumb, etc. So it's social engineering, there's no doubt.
So everything that everybody said for the last few 10 minutes, I don't know, is pretty well in line with this clip I saw. So Tucker is interviewing this Black guy. And I think this is from today or yesterday. But I just thought that this guy he's got on, he's compelling. So I'm just going to play it and you'll see how I think it all connects. I'm pretty sure.
Should read. Amy Sweezy describes a conversation that she had with the county medical examiner, Andrew Baker, right after George Floyd died. Quote, I called Dr. Baker early that morning to tell him about the case and to ask him if he would perform the autopsy on Mr. Floyd. Sweezy recalls all this under oath in the deposition. Quote, he called me later in the day on that Tuesday, and he told me that there were no medical findings that showed any injury to the vital structures of Mr. Floyd's neck. There were no medical indications of asphyxia or strangulation. Oh. In other words, George Floyd, according to the official autopsy, was not murdered. He died instead of what we used to call natural causes, which in his case would include decades of drug use. as well as the fatal concentration of fentanyl that was in his system on his final day. So this was not a killing. It was yet another narcotics OD in a country that records more than 100,000 of them every year. The medical examiner clearly understood that and, in fact, articulated it. And Sweezy explains. He said to me, she recalls in the deposition, Amy, what happens when the actual evidence doesn't match up with the public narrative that everyone's already decided on? And then he said, quote, this is the kind of case that ends careers. In other words, everyone lied about it from the very beginning. The people who knew the truth hid the truth and allowed the revolution to proceed. Now they've been exposed. Now we know the truth. What happens next? Well, they're going to ignore it. The Biden administration just issued a long purple statement celebrating George Floyd's birthday. He's a martyr, despite the fact we know that he was not murdered. And by the way, Derek Chauvin is still languishing in jail for the rest of his life. So how do we respond to this? How do we respond to the truth once we have it? Well, Vince Everett Ellison seemed like a good man to ask. He's the author of Crime, Inc. He joins us now. Vince, thanks so much for coming on. So as with so many other stories, the origin
thanks for having me, Tucker.
Of COVID, it's a blessing to have you. We now know what actually happened, but the question then is, what do you do with that knowledge? We know that the U.S. government, Tony Fauci, worked with the Chinese to create the virus that overturned the American economy, but like, what do we do with that knowledge? What do we do with the knowledge that George Floyd was not actually strangled to death by a cop?
We have to acknowledge the people that gave it to us and why. See, George Floyd is the Democratic Party's prototypical black man. These are the black men they are trying to create. So George Floyd has to be elevated. He has to be celebrated. He's perfect to them. He was poor. He was uneducated. He was a drug addict. He didn't have a job. He was down there begging and crying and asking the white people to not kill him. To a Democrat, to a white Democrat, this is the perfect black man. So he has to be elevated. Look, not a few days ago, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden celebrated hip hop music. They had a celebration of hip hop.
Hip hop culture is America's culture. It is a genre. It is music and melody and rhyme. And hip hop is also an ethos.
A music genre that calls the black man the N word, calls women the W word and the B word, talks about misogyny, shooting police, smoking dope, selling dope, fighting, killing, acting a fool. They celebrated this genre. Why? Because this is how they see Black America. They see us the same way they see George Floyd. And they have to make more of us because everywhere they rule, you know, John F. Kennedy stood in front of the Berlin Wall in the 60s and said, if you think that communism is great, let them come to Berlin. Well, if you think that the Democratic Party is great, let them come to Detroit. Let them come to Chicago. Let them come to St. Louis. Let them come to LA, Portland, Seattle, Memphis. Anywhere where they rule, you'll see George Floyd's all over the place. And they're proud of them. In Baltimore, Maryland, they spend $21,000 per child for every child up there inside the school district. Not one school is proficient in math, science, or reading. But they keep it going every year. Why? Because they're producing George Floyd.
But
and George Floyd's vote for the Democrat Party.
But why would, so when most of us, you, me, I think all normal people look at George Floyd's life, you think this is a disaster. This guy never added anything. He took a lot in prison at least 8 times. I mean, his life was a tragedy at best. Why would you want more people like that?
Because he votes for the Democrat Party. And then he teaches his children to vote for the Democrat Party. And then these white Democrats can feel superior to him. Yeah. He can be controlled by them. Just like, think about an old slave plantation, Tucker, back in the day. How they wanted their slaves to act. Subservient, obedient, ignorant, you know, doing what he was told. Not asking any questions, having a slave mind, being dependent on them. This is how they want black men to be in America. This is how they want the whole black community to be. This is why it started in the civil rights movement. When Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Green speech said, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the Negro is still not free. He said 5 times in that speech that we were not free. It turned the Declaration of Independence on its head. because in our Declaration of Independence, it said that our freedom was an unalienable right given us by God. John Locke, in his second treatise of government, said that an unalienable right is a right given from God. It is irrevocable, non-transferable, and unsellable. And unsellable. The government cannot touch it. It supersedes law. It supersedes the Constitution. However, King said that we was coming to government and to the white man for our right to be free. Even at the end of the speech, he said, on some certain day, we'll be free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. He said in that speech, when will we be satisfied? He said, we will never be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. That's a fancy way of saying never. And so black people heard that speech and said that we were not free here in America. And we make our children recite that speech every single year on King's birthday. And they say in that speech, the Negro is still not free. George Floyd was a slave in his mind. And the civil rights movement caused him to be a slave in his mind. And today they're still marching 60 years later, telling black people, you're not free. Beg for reparations, beg for affirmative action, kill your children in the womb, cut off your child, you castrate your children, let drag queens come into school and shake their behinds in your children's faces, run God out of the public square. And then they end up like George Floyd. But the one thing they do consistently is they vote for the Democrat Party, and the places where George Floyd's live, they stay in absolute power.
What do we have to say?
I got a lot to say.
Me too.
If I
Me
may.
too.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll just kick it off. First of all, I want to shout out Miriam Heinine. She is an independent researcher. She was one of the first people that granted the Union of the Unknowns part of her time, and she's a big deal. She did a the bees disappearing documentary that you might be familiar with, Mike. She made that film that was actually narrated by Ellen Page before, all this stuff. And then Miriam is also on Union of the Unwanted as a contributor there. She has a documentary that she did a deep dive into the George Floyd situation, which she considers to be a psyop that ushered in the color revolution in the United States. So she also thought that Derek Chauvin was either in on it or that he was maybe activated or something like that. He was military. And there's a lot of other shady connections between Derek Chauvin and George Floyd in the nightclub that they both worked at. That nightclub is also implicated in drug dealing and money laundering with the Sinaloa cartel. So there's a lot going on with this story for sure. And the other thing that I wanted to, and I tagged you on her link on her documentary on Twitter, Mike. But the other thing that I wanted to reiterate about that is that what this man is saying is true. They want Black people to be victims. They want Black people to feel subservient and dependent on the state, but they want that for all of us. That is the goal for everybody. It's not just specifically Black people. He's not wrong, but the education system, and there's a lot of evidence from this, and you can look at John Taylor Gatto's work and the work of Richard Grove that talk about specifically how this Prussian education system was set up to deprive us, all of us that went through it, of the basic skills that could help set you up for success in life, because they don't want you outside of the system. They don't care if you're white or Black. They want you in the system. They want you as a cog in the system. They want you feeding the system, but they don't want you outside of it. But that's not a race thing.
No, but I think possibly the Black people was their trial run.
Yes.
So now they're just doing exactly the same thing to everyone.
Yes. Yep.
But yes,
I wouldn't argue with that at all, because I do think that they started with the drug interruption and the hip hop interruption in that community sooner. Although there was a drug push in the white community, so it could have been to see which was more damaging faster, the race to the bottom, as it were. Sorry, go ahead.
Possibly so, yeah. I mean, I remember in the, must have been the late 70s and late 80s, heroin was a pretty big problem. I don't know if it was the same over there, but it was in Sydney, and that's when they all started opening up shooting rooms and things like that. That was, we don't have a large Black community. Well, we didn't then, certainly not. It was sort of quite unusual to see a Black person back then. It's still, still is not like stacks, but there is kind of like rapidly becoming more in the last couple of years. But yes, I want to also shout out Marion Hanane. It's definitely worth looking up her documentary. She certainly put a lot of time of her life into that and uncovered a large amount of things, which I think some of her facts were kind of pillaged a little bit by other people, weren't they? Was that about right, Ashley? Yeah.
Yeah, and she was also calling out Tucker, not in an ugly way here, but she's like, I've been saying this now for like 3 years, and now and people are giving they're giving Tucker, some people in the truth community, like, Tucker breaks the news 3 years later because she's been talking about this.
Yeah, it's almost like people in our community sort of come out with things and then they have to come out with it because they can't hide it anymore. It's obviously out. So then they have to harness it. But I would also like to say Mariam Hanane was also our very first guest on Union of the Unknowns. So you can catch her on Union of the Unknowns, Union of the Unwanted as well, and also her very own Truth Lives Here, I believe it is. Is that correct, Ashley? Anyway,
I'm not sure, but she does have her her own podcast too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we play her documentary trailer here?
Well, it's nothing. It's all. Oh, is that the George Floyd one?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
If it's just a couple minutes, I think it's worth it. I think there is some information, like her own kind of voiceover here, and I do think she asked some valid questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
In a promotional sense, I think it's worth doing. Yeah, for her.
Freedom of speech. Don't touch him. I got this all on camera. Watch out. Don't touch me.
Third precinct is up in flames.
We begin with breaking news in South Minneapolis.
Caught on tape, a black man pinned to the ground, later dying after a white officer kneeled on his neck.
It started with a report of a forgery in progress and ended with Floyd's death.
The situation has become volatile at the 3rd Police Precinct tonight.
As police officers and protesters clash over a man's death.
Miles from Minneapolis, anger, frustration pouring into the streets of America.
I can't breathe! It all stems from this video.
What we saw was horrible. He can be heard on the video saying, "I can't breathe."
Police officers involved have all been terminated.
Let me see your hands.
You can ask Mr. Adams about me. Man, I'm scared as fuck, man. Let's start breathing. It's gonna go up on me. I can't choke. I can't breathe.
That's my ex. He got a thing going on. I'm telling you about
that
the police. He have problems. Not move, not one time, bro.
He's off track or no?
But yeah, bro, go back in the store. What happened to him?
Fucked up. All right.
They fucked him up.
You took your ID? Yeah. How you doing?
So what happened? More drama at Cup Foods?
Cup Foods, yeah. It was just a forgery report. The person that had given him a fake bill, we went over there and...
Bananas?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, for the listener, there was some there were some captions going on, but there's certainly some debate that could be had as to whether or not the kneeling on the neck was the final straw or just part of it. I don't know. But this issue of how George Floyd got lifted up into the center of the conscious, discussion is worth considering, right? It took most of America by surprise.
Something just occurred to me. I don't know if it's been addressed, actually. Maybe you know, Ashley. The fact that I always thought it was a bit funny that the whole thing that sparked that off was a forgery of a $20 note, I believe it was. And it's like, it just sort of occurred to me now, is that sort of telling, is it like this whole thing is a forgery? Like this whole thing was based on a forgery? Has anyone mentioned that?
Yes. There's so many weird things about the story, but that's a really good one, that the shop owners or whoever was working there called because it was over, the fake money, a forged $20 bill. And then there was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think the shop owner ended up saying that telling the cops that they were there, but they actually weren't there during that initial exchange. So there's all these many things that kind of go towards it, like not really adding up if you start looking at it. It's like the dude says, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous.
Yeah, when you put them all together.
Love the Big Lebowski reference. Why? Yeah.
That's what my reg, dude.
Yeah.
But back to
really tied the room together. Sorry.
What that guy was saying on Tucker's show, he was talking about how a lot of things have been engineered to keep Black people down, and I don't disagree with that. I do believe that there has been a very large concerted effort from many agencies, different aspects of society that have been pulled into to kind of to pretty much keep Black people down, to entrap them into a system of obedience and servitude. But and Ashley, you said the very thing that I was thinking. Everybody's been done that way. I think that they realized that because Black people were separated from white people for so long in the country, in the U.S., when, like during the slavery era, they did develop their own separate cultures simultaneously. So they were the things that were going to work on Black people were not necessarily going to work on white people. And so each had to have their own tailored program, so to speak, plan of action, agenda, whatever you want to call it. Each had to have their own specific set of circumstances to bring them to a place of subservience and no critical thinking and obedience. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. And to even further divide, you have the division between men and women. You have the feminist movement was the same thing. It was reverse psychology that worked on women, making them think that what they were experiencing at home, taking care of their families, serving their families, was oppression, and it was slavery basically, and that in order to be free, they had to be outside the home and away from their family. So the sorting device has been at work for quite some time, and now you have so many different divided groups. Even the kids are separated from the parents now. You have the generation gap, as it were, and Hollywood was essential to impressing upon young kids that they needed to rebel against their parents and against their families at a certain age. It was always driven into their minds that they would go through their teenage rebellion, or they would have some kind of rebellious phase, and that was perpetuated by Hollywood. And that was never an issue. That was never really a problem prior to the existence of Hollywood and all these big blockbuster movies. And even back in the 20s and 30s, when the movies were just kicking off, they would have these stories about people who were unhappy in their situation, so they went and found adventure and all of that. So I really feel like it's been, it's hard to say when it started, because I think it's kind of always been in process, but I think it really kicked off, at probably around the turn of the century, when technology started picking up and things started advancing to where government had more control over what people consumed, and more opportunities for infiltration into family life and splitting people up.
Yeah, well, a lot of the social engineering came from the Tavistock Institute, and that's been around for a little while. And each generation has to have their own, their own thing, because that in itself makes sure that generation gap stays nice and healthy. I mean, if, for instance, rock and roll, 60s, 70s, it then became, with technology, as you said, Fido, the invention of the microchip, that then we were able to bring the synth in and all that, and music completely morphed. And then, of course, the 90s, the grunge. So each generation has got their own thing. It's never going to be the same. It's like they're not going to encourage that. And of course, the social engineering and the lyrics, the whole attitude, everything else also shapes that generation and that way of thinking and that society and that social temperature, to make sure it's the opposite of the last one as well. So it's just, as we always say, isn't it? Multifaceted. It always is. And they've had their think tanks at this for a long time, so they know which way to come at it from every angle. And it's like a formula. If you sit back and look at it, it is like a formula every generation or so. It's like fashion.
Yeah, it's like the hijacking of counterculture. This is not something that I was even remotely aware of, but now that I've kind of like dabbled in multiple different countercultures and looked at it from this like outside view after the fact, it's like, wow, like, I mean, I don't know that every movement is totally artificial, but it does come from a place of social engineering, it seems. And this guy, I brought it back a little bit, but this guy on Tucker, we can debate Tucker and his influence and his motivations, but I at least like what this guy is saying from a thematic point of view. So I took it back a little bit. He's going to talk about this kind of idea of like where it all went wrong. So I'm just going to play it out and we'll take it from there.
Absolute power.
That's a pretty dark explanation. So you're saying that the Democratic Party as an organization intentionally degrades black people to keep them compliant and obedient.
Oh yes, in my book Crime Inc., I talk about one of the main things they do, like the mafia and organized crime. They humiliate black people. They demoralize them. It's a Marxist construct. They demoralize their people. They beat them down. They tell them that they're victims. Well, it was Martin Luther King Jr. that said, they tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, how can you pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you're bootless? He told us we were bootless. You have black preachers, and you've heard, about my iron triangle, the black preacher, the black politician, the black civil rights worker. They go into the black community. Consistently, you're a victim. You're oppressed. The country hates you. Well, see, I look at them and I say, I'm a black man, but I cannot be oppressed. You know why? Because I'm a child of God. I'm an heir of Jesus Christ. I cannot be a victim. Why? Because I'm an heir of Jesus Christ. I'm a child of God. I cannot be a victim. See, they tell these people to go against their religion and their basic ideology, because most black men say they're Christians, right? But then they walk around saying, I'm oppressed. I'm a victim. I'm afraid. 365 times in our Bible, they tell us to fear not. Yet they walk around saying they're afraid in the United States of America. LeBron James said he's afraid. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says he's afraid. Kaepernick said he's afraid. Well, I'm a black man in America, and I'm not afraid of a damn thing. I don't ask for permission in my own house. America is my home. So as they walk around here crying, talking about, I'm frightened, I'm afraid, I can't make it, please help me, I tell them they stink in my nostrils. They're an affront to God. The flip side of white male intimidation during the civil rights was also black male cowardice. They laid down and let them beat them, slap them around, rape their wives and their children. Well, no, not me, never me. I'm a free man. I live in the United States of America. They say it's an honor to be, that there's white supremacy and that white people have some type of privilege. Well, as I said before, it is a privilege to be white, but it's also a privilege to be black. And it's a privilege to be an American. And it's really a privilege to be a Christian in the United States of America, the greatest country on the face of this earth. And they're not going to make a George Floyd out of me. I stand up strong. I look them in the eye. And I say, I'm a free man. My freedom comes from God. It's an unalienable right Giving to me by him. You cannot touch it. And if you try it, I got two things that'll get you off of me. Jesus and my 38. Come try me out.
I kind of like this guy, you
That's
know?
awesome. I love this guy. This is awesome.
Yeah. There's a hair more. Should we play it on, or
Go
what do you?
Go ahead.
Yeah?
I like him.
Okay.
So the Democratic Party used BLM as a domestic militia in the last presidential cycle, 2020, to defeat Donald Trump. Do you expect something like that to happen again?
Well, you see how they use the same tactics as Iran. Iran has Hezbollah and Hamas as their militias. And the Democratic Party uses BLM and Antifa as theirs, throwing the rock and hiding the hand. Of course they're going to do it. They've always done it. Even at the beginning, they used the Ku Klux Klan for the military reign. Now they're using BLM, they're using Antifa, they're using NAACP, and they're their suicide bombers. They're their shock troops. They're their brown shirts. They're their street soldiers. And they're going to go out there, and I guarantee you, Tucker, they're going to look over all the black-on-black violence. They're going to look over all the black men killing black men. They're going to look over all the snatching grabs and all the burning and all the fighting and looting and acting a fool. And they're going to find one crazy white cop that's going to do something to some crazy black man, and then they're going to try to burn this country down for it. That's their plan. That's their template. I hope America's ready for it because it's coming. And it always works for them. It always works because the press and everybody's just waiting. Oh, they're on the starting line just waiting for it. And as soon as they find that golden kill, watch them go crazy with it. BLM is going to start getting their money from the Democrat Party because that's who they get it from. The same way that Hamas gets their money from Iran. BLM gets their money from the Democrat Party. And BLM does not stand for Black Lives Matter. It stands for burn, loot, and murder. And that's what we should call them from now on.
Vince Everett Ellison.
I think he's got a point. Is BLM the Hamas of the Democratic Party? Is Antifa the Hezbollah? Is that a reasonable correlation?
I think so. Although I do think that I'm actually leaning towards Hamas being intelligence more than Iran, but the principle applies. Definitely, both sides are being played by BLM and Antifa. Both sides are being played by the same puppet master, the intelligence agency, and they're going to have a handful that are basically the leaders, so to speak, and then they delegate to their underlings. But yeah, for sure, I think he's not far off the mark.
Supposedly, Hamas was a creation of the what's the Israeli secret police?
IDF.
Mossad.
Mossad. Hamas, Mossad, and Hezbollah. These are just like gibberish in my mind, but I'm trying to keep them straight.
Hamas was apparently a creation, yes, as you say, of Israel, basically, around the time of Yasser Arafat, because it was supposedly to sort of keep that power down.
To bring the PLO to Kiel, right?
Yeah. People's Liberation Organization, isn't it?
Right. Palestinian Liberation Organization.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. And then I believe, this is the narrative that I'm aware of, and I don't by any means say I understand it. But apparently then they sort of got into power in Palestine. Palestine sort of voted them into power, and they got too powerful. So, but I think it's all just, they're just chess pieces, really. That's what I really think. They're all just chess pieces being moved into position to achieve whatever the next bit of the agenda is.
Sure. And one thing that I wanted to chime in when Mike was talking about different movements being organic or not organic. So my thought is that many movements probably are organic at the beginning. And then as soon as there appears to be forward momentum and reach with that particular movement, then it becomes co-opted right away. So, for example, there was somebody who came up with BLM, and I, just as a term or a movement in and of itself, Black Lives Matter, I have no objection to that. However, the person who invented it got no love, got no coverage from, and this is a fellow Black person, from the BLM, the org, right? And then if you start digging into these people, you see a huge amount of corruption that proves that they're not really in it for what they said they were to begin with. You know, we're talking about taking millions of dollars, buying personal properties, several personal properties with that money, the donations and stuff like that. And yet the Black community is no better off than they were. In fact, they're probably worse off. And then, so basically, I just feel like movements are sometimes organic and they get co-opted very quickly. For example, like Motown music, you know, moving into like that, helping to create hip hop music. Well, I don't think that hip hop music started out being violent and having these, the messages that you see today, or that the messages of like the Blood and the Crips that you see with Snoop Dogg and like Tupac and Biggie and all that stuff. I think that that was genuinely an expression of music that got co-opted to send, you know, propaganda basically to that community of societally or culturally destructive behaviors.
I agree 100% with that, because you know you see the same thing with pop music. You know, as soon as your up and coming artist gets big enough, they get co-opted and they get pulled into the system, as it were. And so, yeah, the whole thing with hip hop is being propaganda. I agree with that too. You know, and I think there was a movie. I think Eddie Murphy did it, and it was supposed to be like a docu movie about how it was called Dolomite, I think. It was actually pretty funny, but it was like it was documenting the creation of that movie Dolomite, which came out I think in the 70s, and it was this really big movie, completely cast with all Black actors, and it was pretty much independently filmed and produced and released actually in a Black theater, a Blacks only theater. And the guy that the movie is about was considered to be the father of hip hop, and because he did with his sales pitches and everything, he was rhyming and basically rapping. And so it didn't start off that way at all, like what we see with hip hop now, because he would rap about everyday things, you know, kind of like just the common struggle of what people were going through. And for sure, it's been co-opted, just like pretty much every genre of music. All of it has.
Yeah, what I understand is that hip hop was kind of a convergence of like spoken word poetry, obviously, with like blues music and like African sort of beat structures that were a remnant from slave culture. And that makes total and perfect sense to me. What doesn't make sense is how it got like co-opted from music about the everyday struggle, which there's plenty of that for like white people too, right? It got co-opted from that into, you know, pimp culture and gang culture and drug culture, right?
I think
Well, it became that after I think the after so long of the Black community being targeted and under attack, basically their family units being under attack, just like the white people's families were under attack, but from a different by different means. You know, Black people were introduced to welfare and in other state-sponsored programs geared towards them. You know, and then you had the drugs that kind of came in and just wreaked havoc on everybody's lives. And then it kind of developed the culture, the culture that hip hop raps, that is a subject matter of hip hop. That came first, and then that's when hip hop was able to be co-opted into all about drugs and the N-word and pimping and whores and all that stuff. So you had to set the scene first in order for the music to be co-opted. And I think that's what happened.
I think also, yes, there's that, but also there's the technology side where around that time, technology was, it became the beatbox situation where there was, the Walkman came later, but even before that was the portable stereo system that people, would carry around on their shoulders. It just became the thing, as you're walking past. You get this Doppler effect of bass as people are driving past, etc. So once the music was able, I think, to be portable and taken out into the scenes and into the streets, that also in itself shaped things, because that was around about the time that, I don't know, maybe this was a myth too, but what they were saying was that there was a little bit less gangness because they were sort of uniting more in music or even having dance-offs and things like that. I mean, that could have been a total BS front as well. But all I'm saying is that the technology itself allowed the portability, and then there was sort of a little bit of an organic thing there as well. But, who created the first thing and whether the transistor itself was a planned thing to shape the culture. Maybe. We don't know how detailed they get. Do they make the most of what happens organically, or do they engineer every single step?
So I'm a big fan of a black blues musician from like the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. He went by Josh White, ironically named, but Josh White, he was the first black man ever invited to the White House as a guest. And he played for, might have been Eisenhower. It might, either that or I don't know. I would have to double check, but he was invited in to play his music, which was about the plight of the average black man, right? And it was honest music, and he only recorded a handful of songs before he died. But his story is one that I am kind of interested in, because I think it was either very subtle propaganda or it was signs of things like actually being like good, improving. And somewhere between like the 30s, 40s, 50s, and the late 60s, race relations like flipped on their head. It seems to me. But I did find this clip. I don't know if it'll be good or not, but it's the origins of hip hop. And I think it might be just interesting to watch a minute or two and see what it says. What do you say? Good?
Go ahead.
Cool.
Sure.
When did hip hop begin? Where did it begin at? When did it begin? People are going to tell you, and the information you're going to find, the common consensus is the hip hop began in the late 70s and the early 80s in New York.
I said the hip hop, the hip it to the hip hop. You don't stop the rocket to the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat.
Right. Right. Okay.
Now what you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat.
Well, what if I showed you a video from the 40s or the 50s, right? 20, 30 years before they say it began.
Mabel Lee, what are you doing back here?
Well, I have an old favorite that I'd like to see.
You like to see? What is that?
Brother Bill with the Jubilees.
Oh, Brother Bill with the Jubilees.
Of some cats with guns in their video. They got dollar signs on their outfit. Man, even some occult Illuminati type stuff going on.
No quicker said than done.
Checkered boards and crystal balls. Groupies in the video. One of the cats looks like Nelly.
Me, Brother Bill, went hunting in the woods in the eastern Maine. The reason why we went up there, we thought we could catch some game. Me and Brother Bill went hunting way in the middle of the night. We shot at something like a grizzly bear, and the doggone thing turned white.
Hey, say, look, you don't want my problems. I just got my titties done. Yeah. This a C cup. I got 100 on the gun.
Oh, without that gun and the way I run. Brother Bill said, boy, what's the matter with you? Had he known like me, he'd have run some too. I run so fast, they say, they couldn't catch me all day. The way I run across that field, they couldn't catch me with the automobile. Run that gun, and the way I run.
Beatboxing even. One of them's beatboxing. Man, they got swagger to them, and I'm gonna show you.
Brother Bill said, boy, what's the matter with you? Had he don't like me, he'd run some too. I run so fast, they say, they couldn't catch me all day.
I'm gonna show you that these guys in the 40s and the 50s were real hip hop. Real deal hip hop.
Come on, brothers, if you want to hear a story about that preacher and the bear. Gather round, boys. I don't want you to miss none of this here story, because it goes like this.
Man, I'm gonna put some drums to this just to show you. Don't make me sample it right now.
Brother, give me that only time, brother, that only time, why don't you give me that only time, brother, it's good enough for me. My Lord, that only time, brother, that only time, why don't you give me that only time, brother, it's good enough for me. My Lord, that only time, brother, that only time, why don't you give me that only time, brother, it's good enough for me. My Lord,
They got the rhythm of hip hop. They're harmonizing like Bone Thugs and Harmony. Man, they're stepping in and out. Everybody's got a verse. They're rhyming.
Why don't you give the only time, brother, it's good enough for me. Yes, yes. Only time, only time, why don't you give that only time, brother, it's good enough for me. My Lord, that's the only time, brother, that's the only time, why don't you give that only time, brother, it's good enough for me. Yes, then the bear reached out to give the Reverend a hug like you would hug a long-lost friend. But old Reverend put on that disappearing act, he went splitting through the wind. Old Reverend went to running like an old hound dog, trying to overtake a hare. He went home, went to bed, and took 6 naps before his shadow got there.
I just thought it was funny. I wanted y'all to check that out.
Okay, I mean, I think there's a point here. There's a fucking point here. Okay, so like you might hear this song that these guys were singing back in the 30s and 40s and think it sounds like just any other, you know, whatever you want to call it, like country, folk, acapella, whatever song, but it has an African feel. It has a different feel. And I don't know, to me, like it brings up this question of like, there's cultural overlap and I don't want to say homogenization, but like there's cultural mixing that happens. And there's in ecology, we'd call it like there's convergent evolution and divergent evolution. And in a nutshell, like convergent evolution is when things develop similar traits for similar purposes versus divergent evolution where things develop differentiating traits for purpose of standing out. So you could say like camouflage is convergent versus like these frogs or birds or what have you that put on very bright displays of color. That would be divergent. They want to seem different, threatening, what have you. I almost think the same applies to culture, right? Like there was a time of convergent evolution after the Civil War, before the Civil Rights Movement, where there was a lot of what you might call like assimilation happening. And it wasn't homogenization, but it was assimilation. And then the civil rights movement comes along, and we end up with divergent. We start going opposite directions, because now, once again, the most important thing is what color you are, not how hard you work or how good of a musician you are or what have you. It's, are you oppressed or are you the oppressor? Right? Does that make sense? Help me out.
Part of the plan is to, they say equality and all that, but the funny thing is it's just so inverted, because the way they're going about it and their end plan is not at all to make us equal or on the same level as each other. It's to widen the gap between them and us. And every time there's separation and division, you can generally trace it back to something that they've created. So I don't think I think generally humankind can get along pretty well without, as you know, with no sort of authoritarian type intervention. I think just left to our own devices, we pretty much respect each other most of the time, I think.
Yeah, without the cultural engineers.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to pit people against each other, because it benefits them to do so. That's the whole point, is that no one cares about the trans community, in the predator class. No one cares about minority this, color that. They don't care. They see us as slaves. Now, slaves are not powerful when the slaves are fighting each other because, oh, well, I'm a bigger victim than you, and X, Y, and Z. So I agree very much with Stella that if people were left alone, then this would be a totally different situation. But I definitely think that civil or cultural engineers have worked very, very hard to try to create these glaring differences in, in race, culture, identity politics in general, right? Because look at how much a quote cis white person has been vilified by like the transgender community. And that's a new thing, that is all so incredibly new in our culture that this was not even really a thing, not even 10 years ago. Like, it has happened that fast. So it's really wild, but definitely the victimhood and the infighting are important.
It also helps that people aren't able to articulate specifically where the attacks are coming from, because it all just seems so nebulous and so vague as to why stuff like this is happening. People are not able to make heads or tails of it, so they just kind of go with it, and they don't really ask a whole lot of questions. It goes back to their training. Well, this is, it is what people say it is, and we just have to go along with it. It's like, and nobody wants to stop and ask the tough questions, or the ones that do end up getting vilified for it. They get treated like they're crazy because they dared to question, well, why is this really happening like this? And, I would say the public school indoctrination of don't ask too many questions has been pretty successful, especially in the last, I would say, 15 years or so, last 20 years. The crop of kids that are coming out of public school are pretty well subservient to the things around them, so are pretty easily controlled.
Yeah, I would agree. It's been, a matter of how many years is that? About 18 years that we're all indoctrinated for a while, and then some of us go on to be more indoctrinated and pay for it. But yeah, it's like we've been taught to fall in line, not hold the line. So
yeah, 15,000 hours to be exact. That's what the traditional K through 12 hours in school is.
When you put it that way.
15,000 hours. That's a long time.
Ooh-wee.
That is a very long time to have a lot of defeatist messaging.
And not be taught very much use. I mean, considering 15,000 hours?
15,000 hours.
After all 15,000 hours, what do we come out knowing apart from a bit of basic maths, really?
Exactly.
And,
That's
you know,
such
where we could point to a few things on a map, perhaps, but
that is
really.
such a good point, Stella. And I wanted to add to that that's one thing that a point that Richard Grove made. He said, but I thought we were only supposed to have 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. And you don't come out. You do not come out as an expert in shit. You don't even know how to do your fucking taxes. You don't know how to bake a cake. You don't know how to sew an apron. You don't
Raise
know
a
how
child.
to nothing.
It takes an extra 5,000 hours to turn you into a slave. Or maybe we should say back into a slave. So what I think, once again, I want to point out that Black folk were not the only ones to be enslaved. Okay.
No.
People of all different colors have been slaves. And it's interesting, you know, I tend to trust my gut when we do these forums and I let curiosity guide us. But to show a clip from 1962 of Josh White, who I mentioned, being this pretty formative Black musician who doesn't get a lot of credit. Like, it's amazing. We have movies about a million different, you know, musicians from our history, but nobody's ever heard of Josh White. His story is pretty cool. But to compare a clip from 62 to a clip from 2023. Okay. I'm going to play just a bit of this. He was in Sweden. So I guess that should be taken into account here. But here.
I would like to sing a song to you. You don't mind, I hope. You're not too jealous, huh? This I sang to her from you, but I'm singing it, all right? It's a love song called You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To. Wow. You'd be so nice to come home to. You'd be so nice by the fire. I forgot the words that time look in your eyes. You'd be all that I could desire. Under stars chilled by the winter, under an August moon shining above. You'd be so nice, baby, paradise to come home to. Under stars chilled by the winter, under an August moon shining above. You'd be so nice. You'd be paradise to come home to.
I couldn't bring myself to stop that music. Okay. It's so nice, right? And
Very lovely.
Love it.
I feel like a fucking prick because the clip I'm about to show next is so unbecoming of black folk. And I'm not saying it's even remotely characteristic, let's say, but this is what I'm talking about with like the sort of divergent evolution, is that we have a sickness that is very visible in the black community, in my opinion, if I'm speaking frankly, that pervades through our entire community, but it's coming out in very visible ways with the black community. Now, before I play this, I want to open it up. You know, it looked like Stella might have had something to say. Not trying to cut anybody off here, but
no, not really. I just said that I love that stuff as well. I would have felt a little bit awkward being that lady, but
yeah. But, you know, it was 1962. Again, he was in Sweden. So take that for what it's worth. But
yes, serenading was sort of a thing back then, you know.
Well,
sweet.
but also I was just getting at the point that it's a black man performing in front of a very, very white audience. And the audience is thoroughly receptive and respectful and I don't know, like enthralled, if you will. Like it seems like we forget that everybody doesn't hate each other. You know, if we listen to the news all the time, we would think everybody hated each other.
Yeah, that's the whole point. It's just all engineering. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we left alone, we'd be fine together, most of us, and then you'd just have the few vigilantes that would make sure that people stayed in line, and everything would just be dandy. So, you know, we don't. It's like little children. You know, you've probably all seen that GIF of the two little children. There's a white child and a black child, and they're in the street, and it's like they've just seen each other, and they're running towards each other to give themselves each other a big hug. And it's just gorgeous. And it's like, well, children don't see colour like that, do they? They just don't. It is bred into us. It's suggested. It's engineered into us. Because unless we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're fighting them. And that's the whole point of it. A subservient crowd is a crowd that are fighting amongst each other and need to be policed.
Yeah, and one thing that I also wanted to throw in there that I don't know is specifically applicable in this particular situation, but in-group preference is normal, and it is okay, you know? Like, for example, if you look at the prison structure, that is very much divided into in-group preference for whatever reasons. I'm sure it's a really nuanced subject. There's a lot that goes into the prison system here in the States. But I also just think like what Stella was saying, if we didn't have cultural engineers trying to tell us to hate each other, then it would never be like that. Even if people were like, yeah, I want to hang out with the Irish people. I want to hang out with the Italian people. I want to hang out with the Native American people. Like, okay, you do you. Like, that's fine. So I think that's an interesting aspect of it. And not that we've watched your video yet, but I would also say that culturally, there's a lot of, I would say in any culture, things that are rather nefarious. For example, there's some things I'm not going to get into here, but one thing that I do want to say is if you were to look at, maybe I shouldn't even say it, people that abuse children, maybe there is a certain demographic. Maybe most of them are white. I don't know. So I think that there's definitely in every culture things that are prevalent. Now, I think that society has been made sick. I think that's been engineered, but I'm just saying like every one of them have their thing. And I would also say that the culture of trying to cut off your child's genitalia, that's probably mostly white people. And that's extremely detestable. It's not the same as a smash and grab, but it's fucking awful nonetheless, you know? And then you have white people, especially liberals, that are super, super pro-choice, but what they really are encouraging is euthanasia, and they're not educating anybody on the history and the origin of euthanasia, but it's the Black community that's suffering from that because they make up 13% of the population and they have a very much higher disproportionate number of the abortions. So weird shit everywhere, fam. That's all I'm saying.
That's always consistent. Can always rely on that.
Weird shit that you can bank
Everywhere.
on. Yeah. And it, again, I'm just going to be blunt, but like this morning, my bad for like checking on Twitter first thing in the morning, but literally like one of the first things I saw, and I'm glad I didn't save it. I'm not going to play it for us because it was just ugly, but it was two black guys like beating up a couple of women for like, who knows what reason, but like just slapping them around in public with a bunch of people like watching and not interfering. And like one of the women is just begging for them to stop. And it's just awful. And I'm not saying that is an exclusive, phenomenon to like black people. It's not, but it's just a horrible thing to see. And it seems like violence against women does seem somewhat prevalent with black Americans. I'm just going to be blunt. Like, maybe that's a horrible thing to say. I don't know, but
it's a socioeconomic thing, really.
Yeah, it's a
not
poor
so much
thing,
a race
maybe.
thing because
Yeah,
you do find.
yeah.
But the thing is, you also find violence in the high elitist levels as well. The rich people, they're not immune to it at all. So it's everywhere. It's a sickness of the human heart, basically. Human hearts are in all of us, no matter how much money or what color we are. So no, I wouldn't say it's an exclusive thing at all. We just see it more because it's more covered up in the higher, echelon sort of areas.
Well, it's covered. I mean, so like these smash and grabs too. I mean, I don't know. To me, it does seem like there's a racial component to what's happening. There's a cultural
There is to
racial
that.
component
Yeah.
to a lot of shit.
Well, what they're showing, I think it is. It's more
Yeah.
so not so much what's happening, but what we are being shown. There's definitely a racial component for the division reasons.
I was gonna share like a short like clip of a bunch of smash and grab video, but I don't really even want to. Like, fuck it.
Yeah, no,
we've all seen it. We've seen it before.
Sure.
It's negative stuff going out into the air, and Satan
Yeah,
rules by the
yeah,
air. So
yeah,
let's not do it.
Well, and the other thing that I want to say, and maybe there is a racial component, and if we look at the way that community has been gone after by the predator class, then it makes sense. Or, children, and of course this happens along an entire spectrum, but I would say that community has been disproportionately affected by fatherless homes. So that matters, having your parents in the home, having a nuclear family. And that's one of the things that the predator class has been after us about is the nuclear family, because that's a source of strength. So they have been able to really successfully take that away from a lot of people in the African American community. So I think if you start severing those bonds and then you continue like the overall dumbing down of a population, which we all have experienced, the 15,000 hours of nothing except for obedience, subservience, that kind of thing, like following rules, stifled creativity, all that stuff, then I think that you start seeing an extreme separation. So now you see like kids raising kids. They have no example of what a good family home life is like. They have no structure, no discipline. And that's not just specifically in that community, but I think it may be worse at this time with these at-risk youth, that they're untethered essentially. I mean, it's Lord of the Flies vibes out there in a lot of ways. And I also have people that I know who work in low income in education, and the lockdown made that worse. It accelerated that Lord of the Flies vibe.
I'm sure.
Because they were not held accountable to have to show up on Zoom class, which, okay, that's fine because that was bullshit anyway. But I'm just saying, like, there was the separation of, and I don't respect authority, but in this particular case, like, there's usually a structure and whatever. Well, that began to be severely eroded. And then I've heard many teachers come back and say that the kids were more aggressive. They were way less respectful of a teacher. Like, I'm gonna shoulder check you in the hallway, a middle schooler. Kids just deciding they just don't want to go to school anymore. So things like this huge separation has happened in that, in those families. And then I think that whatever is happening in school, and we may have touched on this here or somewhere, but that they aren't, things that schools used to care about, like attendance and being late and stuff like that. They don't care about that anymore. And I don't know if that's simply coming from policy changes, like, oh yeah, fuck it, just we don't focus on that anymore, or what it's about. But I can tell you, when I was in high school, I got in trouble for the stupidest shit. Like, I had the wrong lock on my locker, and I got called to the principal's office for that. So this is the sort of strict bullshit that they're holding you to there. Now, you don't have to bother coming up to school. Like, your attendance matters not, So I think that there's, in a Lord of the Flies situation, it would be very easy to get caught up in groupthink, in crowd mentality. What's the word I'm looking for?
Riot mentality.
Like the
Yeah.
hive mind. The hive mind.
Herd mentality.
Herd mentality, how about, all the things. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the key is definitely the education, and that's something else that they've engineered, because look at it now. I mean, they're not going to walk away with any kind... We used to have sex education in class, and even though that is probably something that should be kept to, the home, it wasn't. And there were some problems, obviously, but I mean, it was just a joke. Really, it was a joke. But now look at it. It's bloody drag queen story time and all. That's what they're learning. It's total disassociation of... Yeah, they're just not learning the right things, and what they are learning is absolutely corrupted. So, just churning out a whole bunch of useless people with certain mindsets, and I know from my own connections, let's say quite close ones, that the university hive mind is just the progressive thing, the blue hairs and all that.
The wokeness.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's people that I didn't expect it from, because they're very intelligent, what have you, but because they're caught up in that culture and that mindset, they've got some really strange ideas which don't make much sense.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to chime in is I don't want to neglect the importance of social media, such as TikTok, such as people getting on there and making, I don't want to neglect the importance of the influencer in today's day and time, because the influencer has a lot of sway. So if you have people that are acting like they're participating in part of this culture and giving the message that my life is so great and I'm here and I got my stacks of cash and I've got my gold jewelry and I've got my Air Force Ones, and then you have children that don't have a strong family structure, they are being raised by one another, but also by this influencer culture. And we know that's really unhealthy. And that's not just specifically to the Black community, right? We have a lot of unhealthy influencer culture. We have the Kardashian type culture, like constant plastic surgery. We care about how we look. We care, like, it's no big deal to sexualize your daughters in order to quite literally sell your soul for fame. Well, that's not a good message either. So the influencer, on whoever it's directed towards, has the capability to be highly destructive and highly influential to especially young people of that age. And they are like glued to their phones. And another thing, and everyone is, but this is even worse. I had someone who was telling me that they had kids in class who won't put their phones down in class. Now, my age, we didn't really have phones at that time. I'm not old, fuck you. But it never would have been tolerated. You know what I mean?
Right.
Never. Like, it would have been taken away. Parents would have been called. It would have been a whole ordeal. Well, this gal has kids answering their phone in class. That's where we're at.
Wow.
She said they won't even stop looking at their phone during
See,
class.
Even just that is distraction, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like they're allowing the distractions. They just don't care. They don't want anyone to focus on anything. They don't want anyone to do particularly well. And I remember in when was it? Oh, must have been about the 90s, I suppose. They brought in a different kind of marking system into the school. I don't know if that happened over with you a lot, but it was like, instead of each individual student being marked on their own merit and how good they did at a particular subject individually per subject, it was changed. I wish I could remember the name of it now, but had an acronym. It was then changed to the marks were more about the average of the class. So
It's like a weighted grading system, or a is that what they call it? Curved grading system.
Is
Yeah.
it? Okay.
That's what we call it here.
Right. Yeah, no, it probably was. But yeah, it was just so unfair because it basically meant the people who were doing really well and worked really hard were sort of kind of being brought back, and the ones who didn't were being boosted to make the school look good. So it's sort of like that was when the individuality was removed, and it became more of a body, a hive. We're all in this together.
Pretty much. Yeah, the public schools here, my niece and nephew are going to public school here, and they tell us all the time that they'll be in class and the whole class gets punished if one of the students acts out. So they have actually several in the class that act out periodically, and the whole class gets punished for it instead of taking those students aside and correcting that behavior individually. They are punishing the whole class for it. And the ones that are doing what they're supposed to be doing and that are behaving themselves and patiently waiting for the teacher to get on with the lesson, they have to stop what they're doing and wait for these kids to calm down, and so nobody's learning anything.
Well, if I've learned anything in the last few weeks, it's that collective punishment is considered a war crime. Right?
I believe it is.
It's a fair point. I mean, it's a really interesting point.
Because that's what Israel was saying. They were saying that there are no innocents in Palestine. There's no, in Gaza, that all of them are worthy of punishment. And it's like even the babies that didn't have any choice in the matter.
Yeah, I call fake news on that.
It's what makes you an extremist for arguing for peace, right? So I found this kind of interesting. This is apparently a son of a Hamas leader who converted from radical Islam to Christianity. Now, take it for what it is. This is coming at us from Fox News. So, yeah, I'm not saying it's the honest to God truth, but let's just hear what the guy's got to say. Just a few minutes, and we'll see what we have in response.
All right. Thanks so much, Carly. Our next guest grew up on the West Bank, where his father was a founding member of Hamas. He was groomed to take a senior role before he turned on the terrorist group in prison, spying for Israel now, converting to Christianity, and ultimately seeking asylum in the U.S. Musab Hassan returns to us now, as he came a few years ago, and now we got more than ever. Musab, it's great to see you. We'd love to know the inside of this group and how they were able to pull off what they did October 7th. First, can you tell the audience your background, people that didn't read your book?
I was born at the heart of Hamas leadership, and I know them very well. They don't care for the Palestinian people. They don't regard the human life. And I saw their brutality firsthand back in 1996 when I spent about a year and a half in Megiddo prison. They killed so many Palestinian people at that time. And this is when I decided that I cannot be together with this movement. In fact, I asked myself a question: what if they become a ruling party at some point? What will they do? If they succeed in destroying Israel and building their state, what will they do? They will kill our people. And this was the first question, that actually I had to be honest with myself. Even though Hamas gave me advantages, I was like a prince in that world. But I did not like them, and I turned against even my own blood, because this is how much I did not like Hamas. And today, 25 years later, they are the rulers of Gaza, and we see what they are capable of doing.
We saw what happened October 7th. We saw them do what they did to Holocaust victims. They have now over 200 hostages, murdered babies in their cribs, and we see the horror of what they're capable of. Now they've retreated back to Gaza, and a ground incursion is about to happen. Would you recommend Israel do this? And what will they find when they go in?
Okay, first of all, we need to evacuate civilians as much as we can. This is an ugly war, and Israel did not start it. Hamas did. First of all, we need to encourage civilians to go into Egypt, possibly women and children, maybe men over 50 years old. These need to get out of the picture. Then the strip need to be cut two pieces, north and south, two parts. The northern part, this is where most of the tunnels are. We need to have a solid siege, okay, for long enough to deplete the enemy and to starve them. After that, we may need to explore using gas. This is sounds horrible, but I don't see any other option.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not saying this guy knows that he's not. I don't think he's a good guy.
I think it was a bad idea to put that guy on their show.
Yeah. I don't know.
He's talking about some serious business,
shit,
and that could later come back and bite them in the butt.
I almost regret even playing it because,
Well, I mean, because I don't watch Fox News, and I probably would never have come across this clip. So, I mean, thank you for sharing that. But I think Fox News is towing the line again of what is legally allowable on the airwaves. I think that is some really dangerous territory, talking about because I know he's talking about killing a quote unquote terrorist group, but nobody is really talking about where they came from to begin with. And yes, he says he was the son of a high ranking Hamas leader, but I mean, where did Hamas come from? Nobody wants to talk about that. And I think that it's very possible that Hamas was started by Mossad, by Israeli intelligence or some intelligence agency, because their tactics are exactly what intelligence agencies do. And they take over, and they are basically a cancer, just like our own intelligence agencies. And they're making all of the people around them suffer. And he's saying that they should evacuate the women and children to Egypt. Egypt is not accepting refugees. I mean, you have to get these other countries on board with this plan before you could just start saying, well, this is what needs to happen. Like, Israel will not take refugees. I mean, Egypt, excuse me. Egypt is not taking refugees. And Israel isn't even letting these people leave Gaza to begin with. Those people are not allowed to leave Gaza Strip at all. And everyone's saying, well, they can just leave. They can just evacuate. They're not exactly evacuating. They're just moving to a different area of Gaza Strip. That's not exactly what I would call an evacuation. And it's just the absolute, just the obtuseness that is coming from the media right now about that whole situation is infuriating to me. Because I heard it on I did hear one clip where they talked about the evacuating the people out of Gaza, and that was basically all they did, was they just moved them to a different area of Gaza. They're still in total, complete danger of losing their lives. They're still in danger of being bombed, and they're acting like that was good enough, and it's not. It's completely unacceptable. And I don't advocate for war on either side. I don't know what the solution is. This is not what I get paid to do. But diplomacy is nowhere even on the table. There's no talk about communication between either side, and they've let it go for so long that it is now this toxic situation that there might not actually be a resolution for, because they've let it stew for so long. And so many people are hurt, so many people are offended, so many people have these grudges and this resentment that has built up. And instead of dealing with it when they could have, they just let it stew. And I don't know that the situation is repairable.
And let's not forget the Balfour Letter, the Declaration. It actually states His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. So, yeah, it's already a crime against humanity anyway. And I think it's really interesting that that was published on 9/11/1917. Well, it's 9/11 the way we write our dates in Australia, which is logical. Day, month, year. Yeah, 9th of November.
Let me get this right.
Sorry about that. Did that audio come through?
It did. It did.
Yes, it
I
did.
hope I got that right.
Yeah. So we've got a
our
video
favorite fella.
here with Stella in the comment section right here. But this was shared and it seems applicable. You know, I'm not exactly sure what this guy is referring to, if there was actually a law. Maybe y'all can fill me in, but was there some kind of push in the States or in Canada to get women into the draft?
I think there was just a rhetoric about people discussing that based on what, like, Janet Yellen of the Federal Reserve was saying, oh yeah, we have enough money to fund 2 wars. So I think that people were probably just responding to that type of rhetoric is my guess. I don't remember hearing anyone specifically in the political sphere talk about a draft, but I think people are thinking, well, how the fuck do you plan on fighting 2 wars, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I was gonna say this this guy's basically saying you're not gonna draft my daughter, okay? And it takes me back to what we were talking about earlier as far as like our energy goes and whether or not you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And there's a certain point where I don't know if you have any choice except to take a tone kind of like this. And I like what this guy's got to say. I'm assuming he's American and not Canadian. That was my kind of question, I guess. I could almost see the Canadians forcing a draft for females before we do. But then again, who the fuck knows anymore? But this kind of goes back to what we talked about last week and how we've gotten away from what used to be common knowledge. Like, you protect women and children, right? That's kind of our job as men. And I'm certainly outnumbered on this forum tonight, but that's quite all right. I'm going to play this and we'll see what y'all have to say.
You want to pass a law to draft my daughter to send to another one of your foreign fucking wars for something you created so your arms manufacturers can make more money for your banker friends. Did I get that fucking solid right or not? Now, wrong, elephant breath. My daughter will not be joining the military any way, shape, or form unless it's to fight this fucking war that this government has started against its people. See how simple that is? The very fact that you don't understand the societal fucking rules about women and children, let me school you a little bit. Now, the fact of the matter is you can't make your fucking recruitment numbers because your recruiters told so many lies like, oh, yes, you get the condo on the beach when you join up. Oh, you get to start here, but we're going to switch you to what you really want later. And the biggest boner up the ass, the VA will take care of you if you got hurt. Hey, the reason you can't meet the recruitment goals is because these young men have already voted with their fucking feet. They're not going to fucking fight. And the fact that you think you're going to get the women to fight, let me put it to you this way. It was one thing when you oppressed us with unbelievable fucking taxes. One thing, because we were living in nice homes and still eating pretty good. It's another thing when you spied on us to the degree that you did and made us realize that we don't have any freedom. It's another thing when you not only wrecked the fucking economy, but you fucking did it in such a way where you spent so much fucking money that went to special interest groups that the people never had a chance to benefit from it. And now, when you have people that are homeless eating canned goods out of the back of their fucking car, you know what? They may do that for themselves, but their kids are not going to go through that. Motherfucker, you're going to find out what people will do for their fucking children. You protect women and children because it's a societal norm. It has nothing to do with being sexist or unequal in any way. The fact is, you should always protect people that are weak of themselves and always stand up for the right fucking thing. And the right fucking thing here is, if my daughter is going to be in a war, she's not going to have to go to a fucking foreign country to fight it. Fuck your taxes, fuck your withholding, fuck your FEMA, fuck your IRS, fuck you, fuck your corrupt Congress, fuck your corrupt presidents, fuck your entire election process. You know, I could go on forever, but let's face it, the world's not going to live that long before a fucking meteor solves a problem for us. So fuck you. And if anybody doesn't like what I'm saying, you know what you can do. If you do like what I'm saying, give me a hell yeah in the comments.
Fuck you. Fuck what you're doing. Fuck all y'all. Fuck you.
Yeah,
I like
elephant
it. I
breath.
like it. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't the most coherent the whole time. Like, there were a few times I'm like, you kind of missed it, bub. But like, you can tell he's just speaking from the heart, and he's pissed. And
Oh,
what
I
are
don't
you gonna
know.
do?
I reckon he
Yeah.
pretty much nailed it there. I didn't really
Yeah.
find anything wrong with anything.
Yeah. Well,
That's good.
That's my kind of heartfelt message.
right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's a very attractive man. Wow.
Yeah, I was like, this guy's based, man. I mean, listen, if everybody had that mentality and they're like, no, we're fed up with your bullshit and we're fucking done and you're not taking our fucking kids anymore, then we would be in a whole other ballgame.
Here. We would. We would be. We need more of him. Less balls on the chin and more in the place they're meant to be.
Yeah, well, and it's like yeah, less chin balls and more real balls, big balls. We need more big balls.
Must be a bugger to shave those.
Yeah, in a metaphorical sense, right? The ladies in this forum have more balls than most of the guys I know. That's for damn sure. So, but no, I mean, it's like the
Too right, mate.
That's fucking right. But you know, I tend to think that it's okay to be a little bit pissed, right? Part of the gaslighting has been convincing men that they should just shut the fuck up and go along to get along, right? Do whatever your woman says, no matter what, because, you know, happy wife, happy life. It's like, I don't know.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
really
it's
bad
like
one, that one. Oh, I hate that.
Sometimes it's okay to be a little bit counter, a little dissident, a little against the grain, right?
Sometimes it's
little
okay to
alpha.
say no.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
More people need to learn the word no.
For fucking sure.
Yeah, a little alpha male is a good thing sometimes, and certainly the masculinity has been stomped out of men, a lot of men, or at least the attempt has been made in a lot of different ways. So I don't disagree with that.
Well, I don't have a whole lot else. You know, I did hear there was a protest at the Capitol. What is this? I think this is Israelis for Gaza, which is kind of crazy. Crossing lines, right? And, you know, last I knew, when you hold a protest at the Capitol, it's called an insurrection, but I don't think they went that far with this one. So,
Well, Mike, before you play that, I did want to
Yeah.
say that some people were saying that. Now, my understanding is that there was a Capitol protest that like breached the Capitol grounds, and then there was another one a little more recent that was a White House grounds breaching. But I did hear people like Marjorie Taylor Greene say this is an insurrection and they should be arrested. Now, I took extreme umbrage to that, because people protesting non-violently should not be arrested. Just because the people of J6 were had the book thrown at them, and it was a psyop to begin with. Like, who knows what was even real with that? But I don't want that done to people that I don't agree with. Now, I would say, like, I likely am not agreeing on many issues with Queers for Palestine. Okay. This particular issue, I think we probably have some common ground, but in general, I don't. I probably find most of those people a huge pain in my ass, but I still don't want them arrested for free speech, because it sets a very dangerous precedent for all of us. And I saw a lot of people like, yeah, throw them in jail for 30 years. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm assuming that most of those people were being intentionally facetious, just like I was, right? Like I agree fully. I
Yeah.
agree with what you just said. When I say last time I checked, it's called insurrection. I'm totally being facetious.
Yes, I don't
Right.
I don't think that at all, Mike, that you really meant that these people should be locked up. But I took what I saw online, people seemed serious. However, you make a very fair point. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, when you read a comment, who knows? I assume if they're right wingers being like, throw them in jail forever, I think they're being intentionally sarcastic, facetious, whatever. Drawing the obvious connection to Jay Sixers, who did get the book thrown at them. But this, I find the framing that these news anchors using, it's very telling. They refuse to say protest at the Capitol. Okay, check this out.
There was some breaking news on the Capitol. There is a Jewish group holding a protest inside the office building there where Jay O'Brien is, just outside the Capitol. Jay, what's going on behind you?
Yeah, guys, the U.S. Capitol is a big complex. So where we're standing is an office building just off of the Capitol. It's where members of Congress have their offices. And this is where the press sets up their cameras. And this is what came just about a half hour ago, a little bit less. You can see demonstrators actually, Greg, at the tip of my finger there, starting to get removed now by U.S. Capitol Police. These are just the second round of demonstrators that we've seen forcibly removed. Another group was occupying this place where I'm standing at the moment just not long ago, and Capitol Police removed them because this is where the press sets up their cameras. There were actually some, because they refused to move, were dragged out of here. This is, again, a group that say on the back of their shirts, Jews say ceasefire now. There's another sign, you can't see it, it's a little catty corner there, that says let Gaza live. It obviously comes in the midst of that ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. It also comes, as you guys mentioned, during a very tense time politically here in the Capitol, as Republicans are struggling to pick their next Speaker of the House. And there is pressure on Republicans, they say, to get it done quickly because of ongoing turmoil in the Middle East. And certainly now this development today on what was already a packed political day here at the Capitol.
Well, Jay, definitely stick around. We will get back to you a little later in the program.
Okay. So yeah, it's Jews who say not in my name. They're saying, fight. I read one of the banners. It said, mourn the dead and fight like hell for the living. So these are Jews calling for a ceasefire. So, hey, these are people I can probably have a reasonable conversation with, and I agree with what you're getting at, Ashley. Like, they have every right to peacefully protest in the Capitol, and it's only obvious to draw that connection to the J6ers that were fucking had their lives ruined, right?
And not only that, but they did not have their human rights respected. I mean, but you're supposed to have a right to a speedy trial. You had a lot of these people that were put in solitary confinement. That's not humane. I mean, there's a lot of problems. But concerning this particular message, hey, I hope that it sank in with some people. I hope some people saw it and they were like, oh, all Jewish people don't want to turn Gaza into glass, because the rhetoric out there from like Ben Shapiro, Laura Loomer, and a lot of other dangerous talking heads right now is that they want blood, they want war. And so I really hope that some people are waking up to this. And I think I've said this probably ad nauseum, my apologies, but I thought that I was on the same page with a lot of people in the on the right. There was a lot of overlap, even though they're not like totally, they're not where I'm at. But I thought that they had the ability to see through the PSYOP. They saw through Ukraine. They saw through the mRNA injections. They saw through, most of the scamdemic, all that stuff. And then it was like the one thing that came up that was their issue, and they were back to square one. Like, they forgot all of that. They spent how many years did they spend saying fake news, fake news. We don't trust corporate America. Fake news. Well, as soon as it serves their talking point, then they're sucking the dick of fake news after everything they've been through.
Totally.
I just can't get over it.
Well,
and
didn't,
to be
real
fair,
quick, Fido, I just want to tell everybody I looked it up on the ADL website. Jews for Ceasefire has been labeled an anti-Semitic group. So I just wanted to cover that real quick, and I'll pass it down to Fido.
well, I was just going to say, to be fair, Ashley, to all of your friends who can't see past the PSYOP for Israel-Palestine situation, whatever. To be fair, all of that stuff going on over there in the Middle East is actually quite confusing to a lot of people. They don't fully understand it because there is a lot of intertwining, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of double crossing, and it is hard to view the whole situation over there unless you've actually really paid attention to what's happening or studied up on it and the history of that whole region, because that whole region, even just the archaeology and the ancient history of that area is just really complex, really convoluted. So,
and I just really quick, Fido, I want to say I do agree with you that it really is a very complicated situation. But for me, what isn't complicated is that we've all been being lied to, and most of us recognize that for at least the last 4 years. And they knew that these people had an agenda, and they knew that they weren't telling them the truth. But this time, they went straight to the emotion of glass them instead of like, maybe I should just step back on this one. Maybe I should just ask like a couple of questions, use a little
or
bit
maybe
of
even do a little bit of research before I come to a
Yeah.
conclusion about everything. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the just the knee-jerk response to just trusting all of a sudden that the news is telling us the truth, what's coming out of there. That, to be honest though, what I heard, the first thing I heard about all of this was we don't have all of the information, and everybody's jumping on the, they were either jumping on the I fully support Israel bandwagon, or on the let's stop for a moment and think about this, because I did see a lot of people calling for reason and looking at the facts before you make a decision, which was really strange to me, because most people, they just jump on it and just go with whatever the news is saying because they don't understand what's going on over there. But a lot of the posts that I saw, like on Twitter and other places, they were calling for people to not trust what was coming out of there. As far as people I know personally talking about it, nobody really is talking about it. Either they don't want to talk about it or they don't know what's going on, so they just don't say anything. But most of the talking points that I've seen coming out about what's going on over there have come from like online posts and social media. Most people in my personal circle aren't really discussing it. But I did have one person ask me what I thought about it all, and I said it's all bullshit. It's probably not what they're saying that it is, and that somebody's going to die. There's going to be a group of people that dies, and it's going to be really, really horrible. And I'm not looking forward to that day when that finally does happen. It's just, I don't think that throwing your full support behind one side or the other without all the facts is a wise move. I did have one friend who posted on her Facebook page about supporting Israel, and it kind of bothered me because she's a Christian, and I think there is a large majority in Gaza right now that are Christians. And so when you say that you fully support Israel doing what Israel has to do, that also means that you fully support Israel killing a bunch of your brothers and sisters in Christ. And I don't think that's right. I think that you should not be advocating for war. Nobody should be. And that we need to call on our leaders to find a diplomatic solution to this if it is all possible, but nobody's even trying. And I don't trust our leaders to begin with, so I don't have much faith that anything good is going to come out of any of this. But that's just me. So
You're not going to see any leaders try to resolve this because
No,
this is all
they're
part of
not.
the plan.
There's too much money to be made. Again, it's what I think should happen, but again, what I think it should happen is not going to happen because it's too much like right. So they're going to do whatever they can to make more money out of the situation, and all the money grubbers are coming out, and the propagandists are coming out in full force. And while all of that's going on, while everybody is completely distracted, nobody's talking about all the new information that just came out that shows that the COVID shots were completely contaminated with plasmid DNA and SV40. I played that video in my Discord server, and I can send you the link, Mike, and if you want to share it around. But
we covered that pretty well, I would figure.
Yeah.
Right.
But while everybody is all distracted with this Israel Palestine stuff, nobody is even paying attention to the fact that there's a few scientists out there that finally proved all of us right and vindicated all of us when we all said there was something wrong with those COVID shots and we shouldn't take it. This guy has the mathematic, scientific reports to back it up, and he shows that those shots were contaminated, and that is what's causing all of these problems with all these people, and he can prove it. And that's the biggest story. That's what people should be focusing on. But no, they're focusing on something that is old news. So Israel's doing what they've always been doing. They're causing problems like they've always been causing problems. Hamas has been causing problems like they've always been causing problems. None of that is new. What is new is we have evidence that the U.S. government basically poisoned its citizens and people around the world with the Pfizer shots, and there's no one talking about that.
Before we totally leave the Israel thing, I think if we're going to move into another thing, I don't know, are we? The only leaders that we're going to see stepping up to try to resolve anything, that's going to be the ones that they set up, because they know that every now and then we need a hero. And if you want to go even further and deeper in a belief system sense, there's going to be an antichrist who will seem like the hero, the really good guy who's just going to come in and solve everything. Now, let's not go into all that right now, but
that's a whole other
the
show.
heroes, totally, a few, probably a series. But yes, the heroes that we have generally are the ones that they give us around about the right time, and because they kind of know the social temperature, the litmus tests, etc. They know, okay, we're at this point now. It's time to send in a hero. That's what I believe. It's all a very carefully thought out plan.
Well, Ashley shared us a clip here. Should we play this, Ash? What do you say?
Yeah, I thought that it goes to, so Stella and I have shared this video, talked to each other about it through the week, but I thought that it was a really good point, because somebody that's definitely high on my shit list right now is War Pig Ben Shapiro. And this has an extremely fast explanation of what he thinks of Jesus Christ. And yet, and I put this in our chat, Christians are, they have his back, and at the expense of Christians in Gaza, just like what Fido was saying. So it's pretty crazy, and I highly recommend the entire video. It's a really good explanation of, quick explanation of what's going on over there and some of the history.
I highly recommend it too.
Right on. I'll put a link in the show notes. Here we go.
Field. Point of view, where we don't believe in the divinity of Christ. I think that there you can make an argument that the Gospels, which were written,
he was just a prophet, and
significant. No, we don't even believe he was a prophet.
What do you think he was? What do you guys think?
What do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble.
But just like Christians, there are certain sects of Judaism that believe one thing and other Jews believe something else. So Jews who follow the Babylonian Talmud, a rabbinical text, are taught that there is a distinction between Jews, who are considered the chosen people in Jewish theology, and those who are not Jewish. The word used to describe the non-Jewish, including Christians, is goyim or goy. It is a derogatory Yiddish term meaning cattle or beast, often.
Look at us, a bunch of goyim, bunch of beasts. Bunch of animals we are.
Yeah, and they're shoving us full of just, they're just, what do they call it? Not dousing, drowning. When they put sheep through the dip.
Like delousing.
Yeah, all that kind of thing. Shoving needles in the herd.
That was not helpful to you, Stella. Sorry.
Look, it's all good. Yeah, like cattle. That's what they look at us as.
I mean, they can look at me however they want. Like, I'm just gonna keep being me. Just don't put me in a cattle chute, and I won't have to shoot back.
Sure. Yeah, I just
See
wish
what you did
people,
there. Nice.
wish people had more. I just wish they were thinking about this a little bit more clearly, because I have been getting. Most people in my life have not said anything about it, thankfully, because I don't want to hear it, especially because 99.9% chance it's going to be garbage. But I do have some friends, and we have gotten like a couple of like Babylon Bee memes, which Babylon Bee is heavily Israeli at the moment. And I was like, I don't even know what to say this. I don't want to say anything to this, because I don't agree with this at all, but I also don't want to fight with people over text. But I'm highly disappointed.
I think it's okay to carry our disappointment privately, and just we don't sort of have to have a whole lot to say about stuff all the time. I mean, even though I'm probably the worst offender, but we should be just okay with being not really having we don't have to have an opinion. Remember, we don't have to.
Yeah. Well, my thing though is, once again, these are people who saw it's not that your opinion is different than mine. It's that your programming has been triggered, and that you you were with me the whole time. No, we're not doing no, Operation Warp Speed. No, scamdemic, all this fake news. Oh yeah, really? Ukraine, Russia, all of that you saw through. And then all of a sudden here, you have no ability to do any critical thinking. You just fall back in line with the corporate press that has been lying to you for the past however long. So that was the problem for me. Not that you have an opinion, like a well thought out understanding, a nuanced understanding of the history or whatever, and you really think that Zionism is the right thing. It's that, no, you knew what was going on, and yet you still automatically jumped on the bandwagon for Israel. That was what was the hard part for me. Is like, I thought you guys could see through this shit. Nope.
Yeah, I've noticed that a few times lately, actually. The opposite opinions coming from people I would have thought, okay, well, you thought this about this. So yes, I've noticed that a lot lately. Funny you should say. Anyone else?
I think this one kind of threw people through a loop, because it's very deep-seated programming. Like, a lot of folks who were right about COVID are wrong about Israel. I mean, I think most people are wrong about Israel, whether they're pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian. I think most of them are all wrong about their reasoning. I mean, I won't say all wrong, but
look, just on that subject, what is right and what is wrong? Because there's so many different aspects of it. Like, and there's so many different kinds of Jews. You got Christian Jews, you got secular Jews, you got the traditional, sort of more traditional practicing Jews. You definitely, just like everything else, cannot put them all in one basket. You can't say the Jews did this because it's only a certain kind or a certain type. And most of them aren't religious anyway. They don't care. They'll kill their own. They're soulless, basically.
Well, this is why I thought
there is no right and wrong.
This is why I thought the theme should be like ethnocentrism, where just like grouping all Jews together is incorrect, grouping all black folks together is incorrect, grouping all white folks together is incorrect. These games get played on us, where we're told to be ethnocentric so that we respond predictably, right? It's like, it doesn't matter who's right and wrong. We just want you to do what we expect.
Yeah, and one of the things that Richard Grove was saying today in our autonomy lesson was, how about Team Human? So I think this is a side that we can all get on. Stop fucking bombing each other. Stop killing people and let's treat each other like we're human, and maybe we can negotiate and figure something out amongst yourselves. But number one, so basically my take on what's the right side. The right side for me is anti-war, 100%. That's where I think, it at least needs to start. And then I'm definitely anti them getting anything from the United States, because we know where that money comes from, so no money to the Middle East from us. Hell fucking no. So that's the side that I am on. No war, team human. Stop taking my fucking money.
And as far as opinions go, on that whole situation, if the only information you've gotten about that whole situation is from the mainstream news, you have no idea what's going on over there, because they are only telling you what they want you to hear. Unless you have actually researched the history and ancient interactions of that whole area, and specifically with Israel and Jerusalem and all that, unless you've actually read any information about that outside of what the news tells you about that area, you really shouldn't try to formulate an opinion, because you really need to look at all sides and at the history of that whole area before you even try, because you're just going to sound dumb, because you have no idea what you're talking about. And listening to people like Ben Shapiro, oh my God, that guy just drives me up the wall. I can't even hardly listen to him. I cannot stand him. He talks too fast. He talks too much. And
if you talk really fast, people think that you might know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and his eyebrows.
Yeah, he always looks at you like weird, like with his chin down. It's very unnerving. I don't like it.
Well,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's fine.
Oh, sorry, Fido. Did you still want to?
I'm done. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Merging the masses breaks down any sort of bonds, doesn't it? Because it just dilutes everything. So that's what helps everything to become like a hive mind. All foundations are destroyed, and nobody's allowed to have anything unique because it might be offensive to someone else. I mean, you can see how it's all been engineered. I remember the very first time I heard the BLM movement. Must have been, what was it? Must have been about April or May 2020, wasn't it? I think it was April. Anyway, the very first time I heard this, I think it was when I was still vaguely on Facebook, and people were going, Black Lives Matter. And I was like, what? What? Where's this come from? And my instant response was, hang on a minute, all lives matter. And boy, yeah, as soon as I realized that I was being thumped for that, I realized, okay, I've really got to get the hell off Facebook right now, because I can sort of see this is going to be big, and I need to get off.
You're a white supremacist. That's all there is to
it. Wasn't even at that point. It wasn't at that point. I'm talking about Australian friends too. So we're a little bit behind, and we also, it's so fake over here because, as I was saying before, we don't have a whole lot of black. We haven't had a whole lot of black people in the community. Like, it hasn't been. I mean, there's certainly it's growing, but not like in America or the UK, for instance. So it's not organic here. It had to be engineered as well, for people to. I mean, we've got the Aboriginals, of course, and of course that's fanned into a great big thing, but that's a whole other story, really. But yeah, I don't think many people were really thinking too much about that issue before this came along, and then all of a sudden, these young people, some of them that I know, were putting their fists up in the air and fucking going to all the protests, and it's like, dudes, hang on a minute, you got to see through this. But nah, just swept along. So.
Hey, I got swept along. I was well on my way to being sort of red pilled, but even I got swept up. I don't like seeing a cop with his knee on a guy's neck for 10 minutes.
Fair enough.
that bothered me. And yeah, emotionally I responded. But I think we have to be extremely suspicious anytime identity politics gets kind of weaponized for a narrative, for any reason. And I think really maybe the solution is sport, right? Like, I actually love the Olympics as a as a thing that people come together and compete, right? And as long as we keep it fair and we don't have Leah Thomas ruining the fun for everyone, I'm all about sport. And my favorite sport right now is something called combat juggling, okay? I think I've mentioned this before, but this to me is too fun. We have one other funny thing to wrap up on that Stella shared in the chat. Don't worry, Stella. I'm going to pull that up next. But I just thought, if we want to end on a high note with some hope in our heart, maybe we just need to get all of the world leaders, like fuck the UN. Like, let's all just have a big combat juggling tournament. And I don't know if we decide any world policy in the process, but I just kind of want to see all these fat fucks try to do something physical for once. But check this shit out. Combat juggling. I mean, this shit is bad in a good kind of way.
This is the sport of combat juggling, an aggressive form of object manipulation combined with debilitating attacks. Each player must maintain control over 3 clubs at all times. In sumo combat, the objective is to destroy your opponent by slashing their clubs to the ground or shoving them out of the sumo circle. In Breach, 30 clubs are in motion at the start of each round, but only one player needs to maintain control until they reach the breach zone. Here is Sayers trying to lock up the arm of Ben Thompson on the right, as 2 of his own clubs trying to steal now. 2-point advantage. 14 parallels.
The temptation to just smash the other guy in the face must be overwhelming.
Quick attempts by Josh Horton. Horton dove in. Lauga Benjaminson was waiting for him. 4 consecutive points now for Team Intel.
All right, that's probably good. My question is the same as that commentator, and I got no answer. Why don't you just club the guy and take all his pins,
I'm guessing that's a foul. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to guess.
It's pretty mind-blowing, though, honestly, because I can't even imagine juggling, like, not even 3 things.
Right.
So to have to, like, that was bowling pins?
Well, they're juggling pins or juggling
yeah.
clubs. I don't know what you call them, but yeah.
Oh, it's certainly a very impressive skill, isn't it? But
Yeah.
man, I wouldn't last 5 minutes. There's no way I could have my head up like that. But then it's probably a good thing because most people have their heads down all the time on a phone, so it's probably quite a good counteracting exercise. Everyone should do it.
Have you all seen the extreme tag? They've got extreme tag now too, where you're playing literal like tag you're it, but in like an obstacle course. It's wild.
It's insane. It's like parkour elements, right?
Yeah,
That's insane.
That sounds fun.
Yeah,
So-
they're moving like you sell it. You would have to watch it. It's like you can't even describe it because it reminds me of how like animals move in the jungle.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy.
Gotcha. Yep. Well, that is how they train. I mean, I've seen a lot of those. I don't know what it's called. It's not actually parkour, but there's some other movement stuff that they do. And yeah, it's very much like sleeking cats across a floor and slithering things. It's really cool, actually. Very stretchy.
Yeah, it's very neat. And I would not want to have one of those people coming at me, though, like flying at me. It's crazy.
It would be very creepy.
I think there's a case to be made though that we need more like blood sport. And I think no holds barred extreme combat juggling. Like
Toughen everyone up again.
Yeah. Like all these juggling clubs have nails sticking out of them,
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Here.
Yeah, because like I mean, the Aussies always have a bit of a laugh about you guys because you wear helmets when you're playing football and stuff.
Right.
Padding.
Right.
It's like, come on, take your helmets off, you pussies.
Yeah, I'd like to hear
I
them
know.
say that when they've got like a 6 foot 6 inch 350-pound American linebacker, corn-fed, cornbread-fed black dude. I couldn't help it. But
Big balls on his chin.
these guys, they can run, man, and they can hit hard.
Oh, they'll flatten you like a pancake.
I don't disparage any of those guys for wearing pads. I get rugby's a different kind of sport, but I'm just saying, yeah. But no,
I'm kidding around.
They're half-ass gladiators. We just need full-ass gladiators.
Yeah.
I'm not
maybe-
opposed. I'm not opposed to any of our congressional leaders having to engage in trial by combat before they get up and run
Yeah.
their fat mouths on the
100%.
Capitol Hill.
Yes.
Nailed it.
I like that.
Nailed it.
If you can make it through
So-
the trial by combat, then you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
So this is a thought, probably for another time because it's a big topic. But while we were on the subject of football and like tackling American football, whatever, I have been curious if the whole CTE thing is some kind of psyop, and if it is, what is the angle, right? Because the CTE issue was made a very, very big deal and got its own documentary, and changed all these protocols in the NFL, although no one was ever really held accountable, blah, blah, blah. And so I have been curious because I was really enthralled with that subject when it first came out. And I was like, what? This is insane. But in the years since I've thought about it, I was like, okay, it got its own HBO documentary. It got the Will Smith treatment in a Hollywood movie. What's the play here? So maybe we could talk about that sometime.
What's CTE?
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And it is brain damage that happens particularly in combat sports, but is not visible in a Western medicine, like a traditional brain scan. It's allegedly, you can see these tau proteins in a certain part of the brain, and you can only see that in an autopsy after they're passed. However, their behavior may be indicative of them having CTE, which would be like early onset dementia, Alzheimer's type behavior, addictive behavior, like being hooked on pain pills, stuff like that, as well as violent to others and sometimes yourself. So there have been a handful of suicides that happened from NFL players. And, you know, that's always the question of if that's what happened.
Okay, I'm hearing quite a few different things being excused for Alzheimer's lately. So I'm just wondering, is this a cover for...
No, this was before the thing, the totally
okay.
safe and
All
effective
right.
thing. Because
Fair enough.
believe me, I'm with you. But this was many years before that, or I would have been considering the same thing. But in the documentary that I watched, people were behaving erratically for years. And these are like older NFL players. So maybe they were like in the 70s and 80s. And so they had an untimely death, but very bizarre behaviors and failed home life leading up to that point.
Think of OJ and Mike Tyson, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
CTE, I mean, am I wrong in saying it's a fancy way of saying you got hit in the head a bunch?
Yeah, it's brain damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the knocks they take. How could you not have it?
Right.
Repeatedly.
Yeah.
Even at training, yeah.
It's no excuse for murdering your girlfriend and shit like that, but hey, at least it's an excuse. Might not be a good one.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Well, that's why I even brought it up, because I would like to see with a little looking into it, what this group thinks about it, because I think that it's interesting. So why are we just now hearing about it? Yeah, well, this is pre-COVID times, but why was it allowed into the fore at that time? Now, was that the money machine, which is like the NFL? They also are in bed with the government, military, all that stuff. So was it them trying to get in front of and ahead of the issue, or was it something else? Because I've wondered what has been the play. It certainly, excuse me, it certainly is never. Whenever you have like an HBO documentary and you have a film made about it, it normally is there for a reason.
Yes, 100%.
Well, I'm tempted to say, you know, maybe we wrap this sumbitch up. Stella, you shared a link in the comments here in the private chat for something called Metal Trump. Is this worth showing? It looks like it might be.
Yeah, I tossed up putting the actual Ozzy and Black Sabbath version of War Pigs on, but I thought, no, I'll probably get a copyright for that. I mean, we may have got a copyright for this one, but I think it's less chance. And it's educational purposes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see what this has to teach.
It just looks like a fun way to finish.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Generals gathered in their masses.
Oh my God.
Just like witches had black masses.
Hell yeah.
Evil minds that plot destruction. Sorcerer of death, construction. In the fields, the body burning. This is a beauty. As the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind. Poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord.
This is great. I loved the brief moment where it had a picture of Trump shaking Ozzy's hand.
Yes. They actually met.
It was fantastic.
We might get a copyright for this.
Yeah, but
I don't give a fuck.
Okay.
Let's go.
Politicians hide themselves away. They only started as a war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave Rome to the poor. Yeah.
Make America metal again.
Are you ready? You ready? You like it? You sure? Time will tell on their power minds. Making war just for fun. Treating people just like pawns in chess. Wait till the judgment day comes. Yeah. We will make America metal again. Thank you. God bless you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Oh, fuck yeah. Good call, Stella Q. I
Yeah, that
fucking
was
love
great.
it.
Who made that video?
Just like to shout out to Lars von Retriever for that one. Thank you very
Yeah.
He's got way too much time on his hands.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, that was great. Highly, highly enjoyed it. And I have had that song on my mind lately for obvious reasons.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, you called Ben Shapiro a war pig earlier, so
That's
this
what
was
sparked
only
the thought,
natural.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well,
yeah.
what do you say? Should we call it a night?
Yes.
I
Or a
think
day,
so.
in my case.
Well, we'll send it around the circle. I'll start. Mike the Polymath, Easy Peasy Podcast. For all of my links, you can go to easypeasy.ittybitty.tips. And I'll send it to Stella Q.
Sounds like you said itty bitty tits then.
Yeah, well, tips with a TIPPS.
PP.
No,
Okay.
wait, actually just one P. Sorry.
Okay, let's get it right.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm on the Union of the Unknowns with my good friend Ashley, and sometimes some others join in. And we've got an interview with Mike coming up fairly soon. OG is next, actually, I believe.
Yep, I think
We
so.
shall see about that. We also do a weekly show called Not Your Mama's News, which is we just try to uncover some of the silliness and the clown worldness and the propagandisms and laugh in the face of tyranny.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm on the propaganda report. That's all very spontaneous. Over to you. We'll go around the circle. Ashley.
Stella, will you ask me the question? This is
No,
for
I
you,
wanna-
Ando.
I want to
Okay.
do it. I want to do it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And Ashley, how do we find the Union of the Unknowns?
Well, Mike, I'm glad you asked. You can find us at unionoftheunknowns.com. That's our Linktree page, and all of the myriad ways that you can get in touch with us, including the link to our Discord, and we would be very happy to have you there. You can find me running the Unknowns Twitter account over on Twitter at Union Unknowns. And Fido.
You can find my stuff I'm back up on Bandcamp temporarily at vitophiliac.bandcamp.com. I have a huge announcement to make, but I'm going to have to wait till next week. So I have,
teaser.
yeah. So you can also find my music on all the major streaming platforms. And sometimes if you listen carefully, you can hear it on Media Monarchy, Pump Up the Volume. That's pretty much it.
Hell yeah. Well, I appreciate everybody who could make it. It was a smaller group tonight, but yeah, another forum for the books, and it was a good one. I'll venture to say great. It was a great one. Just me and the ladies, you know? It's like what could you ask for? I'm a lucky guy. I'm a lucky guy.
Agreed. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for coming, and yeah, we'll talk to y'all next time.
Thanks for listening.
Talk to you later.